Good morning, all. I would like to call this meeting to order and welcome everyone this morning and indicate that meetings of council are live streamed on the Township's official website in accordance with the live streaming and virtual participation of meetings policy. I would like to welcome all members of council this morning, also to our staff that will provide us facts and information so we can make best decisions in the interest of the corporation of ACW and all of our full-time and seasonal residents, irregardless of their age, youth, children, and seniors. This is our budget meeting today, and I will provide some brief comments at a very high level to open the meeting. This is a very manageable budget today. ACW has the lowest tax rate of any municipality in Huron County. We currently have $10 million in reserves as a result of past councils, this council, and staff's financial acumen. We have increased our reserves $7 million in the last 10 years, $4 million in the last 4 years. Reserves are for a rainy day, and we know how much rain we had 2 days ago. Staff will provide us options on how to address the needs and the programs that our residents expect and request. There are many costs that are fixed that we have no choice over, and we do have choices on a few options on this budget. ACW is in a very enviable position. We will have a break, probably 10:15 this morning. We'll have lunch, and the meeting will conclude when the meeting is ready to conclude. I would like to indicate that 1% increase in the tax rate is the equivalent to approximately $70,000. So 5% is $350,000, 10% is $700,000. I'm going to ask if any members of council have a pecuniary interest to indicate at this time or a potential conflict of interest of any agenda items. Seeing none, I'm going to pass it now to our CAO, Mark Becker, to provide some high-level comments for council's awareness. Mark, please.
Thank you, Mayor Glenn. Good morning, everybody. I always look forward to this day each year as we set our priorities for the coming year, and I'm always pleased to be here with you, and I'm pleased to be here with you today as we begin our review of the draft budget. Treasurer Ellen McManus has prepared a well-organized and detailed budget in consultation with all the department heads. I would like to thank Ellen and the department heads for their work and input in preparing today's draft budget for council's consideration. As always, the draft budget has been prepared based on a 0% increase from the 2025 tax levy. Staff have included all the necessary capital projects in the draft budget with the understanding that council will ultimately determine which projects will be included in the 2026 budget, which will be deferred, and what amounts may be transferred from reserves. I would also like to ask that you refer to the last page of section 2 in the bottom right-hand corner. You will see that amount that must be adjusted to reflect the final percentage increase from the 2025 levy. As we move through the day and make these adjustments, Ellen will keep us up to date on the status of that figure. Operational expenses for each department are based on estimated cost and are outlined within respective sections. Based on my past experience, this being my 37th municipal budget and Ellen's 6th budget, I would like to encourage council to remain focused on the big picture. Small adjustments such as changing 500 here or there typically do not have significant impact on the final outcome. It would be helpful for council to determine early in the day the appropriate percentage increase to the 2025 levy in order to establish the 2026 levy as outlined in section 5. Council should keep also in mind that our current asset management plan identifies an average annual capital funding requirement of $4.9 million to maintain existing infrastructure each year to prevent backlogs and ensure long-term sustainability for assets such as roads, bridges, and culverts. And in that section, I think it's section 6, Tom has outlined all the bridges and culverts that shows how much we actually should be putting towards not just doing the work, but also putting reserves so we can do it in the future. The township's ability to meet these infrastructure needs will depend on maintaining healthy capital reserves, which requires proactive increases in annual transfers to those reserves. We have a full day ahead of us with lunch available at noon. And in closing, I trust that council will approach today's discussions with prudence and an eye towards the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. When you cited this as your 37th, you bring a lot of experience to us that we will call on today.
Thank you. I'm glad you didn't call me old.
Never, never, never. Our very capable treasurer, Ellen McManus, would you have any comments to make at this time, please?
Sure. I think Mark covered a lot of it, but first, thank you, Council, for your time in reviewing the budget package. As staff, we've included what we think is important to help you make decisions today for the upcoming year and also for the years ahead. So the budget is focused on delivering core services while balancing the needs of our residents. And as you know, we have a variety of residents, farmers, seasonal residents, those that live in our towns and not towns, but settlement areas. So as we look ahead, we have to keep in mind that our infrastructure needs will continue to grow over the next several decades. So it's not just today, but it's 100 years from now that we have to think about, because roads, they do last for 100 years, at least the base does, if you take care of it. So the goals of the budget are to deliver a fiscally responsible budget while maintaining a sustainable financial position for the township. So where we can, we've found efficiencies and reduced costs. We've made a goal of building our reserves, and we want to maintain our current levels of service. So thank you, Mark, for designing a good budget package. I think I haven't changed it too much over the years, but I'm looking forward to today's discussions, and we're here to answer any questions as we go through the budget.
Thank you very much, Ellen. On behalf of council, thank you very much for all of the hard work that you have done in preparing this budget for us for consideration today. I'm now going to call on our Director of Public Works, Superintendent Thomas McCarthy, for any comments, please, Tom.
As I go over every year, any successes that the department's had is mainly due to the hard work of my staff. If I look professional at all and knowledgeable and things come across neatly, it's because Ellen really helps me do my job. I cannot do it without her. If it were up to me, it might be a bit of a mess. Thank you very much, Ellen. All of the contractors that have helped us through the winter, thank you as well. The items that I've put in the budget are based on asset management plans that we've been working on for years. Even if someone may disagree that you should do this road or that road, we've got it laid out for like the next decade and a half. You need to invest. I go over this every year. You've got 75 bridges. Bridges last 75 years. You need to do a bridge every year. You need to keep on top of your asphalt or it will fall into disrepair. So the quantity of asphalt in the asset management plan reflects that. The asset management plan was done with the cooperation of the engineer and township staff. We drove all of the township roads. We determined the risk of failure on each road and the consequence to the ratepayer if the roads are unavailable for use. So these things aren't just plucked out of thin air. They're carefully thought out. Everything's in there for a reason. We don't have, there's no bonus material in this budget I've presented. Everything's got a purpose. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Tom, and to your staff. It has been a very, very challenging year in public works from our roads in the spring that have consistently and improved, and to the winter that continues. With that, I would just like to also indicate that 2% is the CPI. So that is just a break even without making any improvements as indicated in our budget. So now I would like to go around the table of councillors to ask what your range of levy increase would be. And when I say range, I'm thinking like whether it be 5 to 6, 10 to 12, 2 to 3, whatever. Just to kind of give everyone a sentiment of where we're starting from everyone's viewpoint, and we will then reach a consensus at the end. So I'm going to start with Deputy Mayor Vanstone, please.
I'm sorry. I'd like to see us come in somewhere between 3 and 4% if that's possible today. Times are tough but I don't want to kick things down the road either. I don't want to make it that we do 4% this year and 20% next year. So, but right now I'm shooting for 3 to 4%. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor Snowden, please.
Can I just clarify with the mayor and deputy mayor? The mayor asked for the range for the levy, and I believe you said the tax rate, did you not, deputy mayor?
I did.
So can you just clarify what if the question is the levy, what the levy is? Or should we just go back to the mayor asking for what the tax rate increase?
No, I'm going to defer to our CAOs to what term we should be using, and then we will get clarity on this. CAO, please.
Let's focus on the levy because as I referred to in section 2, the last page, that's the amount that we have to transfer from reserves or cut or things like that. So let's stick with the levy. So Bill said the levy between.
He said that. I'm sorry, that you said the tax rate.
Oh.
So what does that equate to in a levy? A 3 to 4% tax rate?
Well, maybe Bill wanted to say levy. I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, yes, let's say levy, okay? Because the tax rate should be lower than the levy. So we'll go with 3 to 4% in the levy, please.
Okay, thank you for that clarity. Councillor Snowden, please.
It kind of messed me up because I was put my notes down in the tax increase and not in the levy. So when I reviewed some of our neighboring municipalities, they are ranging anywhere from 3 to 4%. And so on the tax increase, so whatever the tax increase or the levy increase equals to 4% in the tax increase. I'm just not looking at the right paper right now because I'm kind of messed up, but I would go with the 3 to 4% in the tax increase. Maybe the CAO could let me know what that translates to.
All right, thanks. Alan, please.
So if you refer to page 4 in section 5,
Okay.
that table there, you can use to convert. If you're thinking in tax rate, it can help you think in levy percent. So the far left column is the levy percentage, and then the far right is the tax rate increase.
Thank you, Ellen. I was looking for that page. I just couldn't get to it right off the top of my head. So given that, I'm going to say a levy increase no greater than 5%, preferably in the 3 to 4%.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hickey, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I went through this package that we got from staff here, and I used the need and the want when I was looking at things that need to be that are possibly to be cut or looked at or kept. That's the same as when we looked at the grant request. We're pushing 70,000 requests in the grant request, which I think you just said 70,000 equals 1% in the tax rate increase. So that's a fair amount that I think is another one that we have to look with the need versus established organizations. So in this range, I'm in the same ballpark, 3 to 4% on the levy. I like to keep it in the range of inflation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Miltenberg, please.
Yeah, I have a couple questions for the treasurer first before I come in, based on what staff said at the beginning, if that's okay. Mark said that according to something, we were supposed to put 4.9 million. What what am I quoting, Mark? Can you say it correctly?
Okay, thank you
Oh,
for
or
the question.
treasurer,
Ellen,
yeah.
please.
So the 4.9 million is the average annual capital requirement over the next, I think it's over 100 years. So if we look at the needs based on our capital, the current capital assets that we have,
Mhm.
it's kind of like a mountain. So right now, the average requirement is, maybe 3 million one year, 900,000 one year, $5 million. But 50 years from now, the requirement jumps to like, 60 million in one year. So
Right.
the average over 100 years is 4.9 million. So if we put off a project one year, it just pushes it further ahead and the backlog grows. So the 4.9 million is from our asset management plan, if you're
Yeah.
wanting to quote a source there.
Okay, so that's one of my concerns, that we don't keep up with that 4.9 million. A second concern I had was something that Tom said, where he said we have 75 bridges. I thought it was 72, so now I'm sadder to hear it's 75, but, which basically means one a year. And I am aware that for 20 years, council did not increase taxes even 2%. They did 0%. And I'm not blaming past council, because I was a taxpayer happily underpaying my taxes and unaware of that. But to me, that suggests that we are behind on doing one bridge a year. Would that be an accurate statement, Tom?
Tom, please.
We've got a couple bridges that are inactive, so we still have to get rid of them. Bridges include any structure that's over 3 meters in diameter, so your large culverts. So we're doing the Nile Bridge in the current year. We've done the Westmount culvert, and I've done the Birch Beach Bridge. So I'm trying to ensure that every year you've got a vehicle, an appropriate amount of roads, and a bridge or a structure.
Right. And I'm also aware that the Cransford Line one, which I took this morning, has been on discussion since before I actually got on council. It's been worsening every year. So here's my concern. I also like to pay lower taxes, and I'm aware that times are tough. I don't see them getting any less tough. For farmers, interest rates are down, commodity prices took a huge jump once there was action south of the border. Our livestock prices are high. For our seasonal residents, our impact is still running on 2016, and that's a political decision at this point, and it's not moving because times have been tough since 2020. They never changed them. Our interest rates have dropped. Our inflation has dropped, and I realize that groceries in particular are spectacularly high, but the federal government announced payouts for that. I am hesitant to say times are tough, so we should do the bare minimum, because I don't see them getting less tough next year or the next year. And there are farmers in particular, or it's the people that I know, but I think it's probably in every place, where they think if they defer their taxes, that means they get out of their taxes. Well, they don't. They just shove them further down the road. And I think that for a couple decades now, we have shoved a lot of taxes down the road. I'm not sure what the right number is, because I don't want to not do a bridge. I don't want to not do a lot of work in St. Helens, or not St. Helens, Wawanosh Ward, the former Wawanosh Ward. There's some major work that needs to be done there. I share Evan's concern about the community grants. I was hoping the Sunset Foundation would be taking that off our hands this year, but they're not, the paperwork hasn't gone through. I also, I'm going to reiterate, I think that former councils, which I cheered because we had very low taxes, put off fixing our roads and our bridges and our infrastructure to do low taxes, and I don't want to do that. And so in principle alone, I don't want to keep it above inflation, just slightly above, because I think we're shooting ourselves in the foot, or whoever's on council next year, or whoever's trying to pay taxes in 10 years. I always come in at 10% and we negotiate down. And I'm going to start at 8% this year in recognition of your comments. But again, I think we need to be really careful, it's like a house. If you have to fix it, if you're going to wait a year or two, it's just going to get more expensive and it might be worse. You have to pay for it. And if you keep it up, it's a lot cheaper that way. And I really think that we need to do some work in the Wawanosh roads. And I also think that with the rain that we've just had and the last 2 winters, we're getting more and more extreme weather. And I would suspect that our public works, just our operating budget is going to go up. I mean, I had a lot of people complaining about right next to my house. So I said, call Tom. And apparently they did. But it did get graded twice and once on a Sunday. And while it's lovely, I really appreciate it. I also know we're paying for that, right? And then we're doing that in Wawanosh too. So I am really, really hesitant to say I'd like to be just in above inflation. I think we need more and I'd like to start at 8. And that was a very long answer and thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Forrester, please.
Thank you, Glenn. I'm not on the same page as Jennifer. I think we've had high jumps in the tax rate over the last few years, and I think this year we should I'm with everybody else around 4 to 6%. So that's my comment on that. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Blake, please.
Yeah, thank you. I totally understand the need to stay on top of taking care of the township's assets. I also understand that if we need to raise more money to take care of those assets, we can raise the tax levy. However, families don't have the option of just going out and making more money and being able to afford to pay those taxes. So I am going to have to say 0% levy increase for myself. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And I would, I think that, in my opinion, the prudent levy for our residents and what they have requested and expect would be between the range of 5 to 7%. So with that, we have everyone's starting number, and I would like to now pass it over to Ellen, our very capable treasurer, to take us through the financial reports. And Ellen will cite the section in the page so everyone is aware of where we're at. And if you have any questions as we go, please direct them to me. Okay, Ellen, please.
Thank you. So we're going to start in section 2, which is the township budget. And I'm going to provide a high-level overview of each page. And for the operating budget, it kind of, not it is what it is, but the operating budget has been adjusted just based on inflation and cost of living increases for wages and benefits. And any sort of unusual items I will bring to your attention. If you have any questions as we go through, by all means, please ask them. And then we will jump to the roads capital at the end. I think if we just skip that section initially and then come back to it, because it is the bulk of the budget in the roads capital. So if that sounds good to everyone, we will go to page 1 of section 2. So this is the general revenues for the township. So the revenues are all general in nature. So that's tax revenue and then any grants and transfer payments we receive from the federal and provincial government. As Mark mentioned, the budget has been prepared based on a 0% levy increase. So it's the same amount of funds as we raised last year for taxes. New in this section is some interest that we are receiving from the Port Albert Master Servicing Plan loans. So there's a 10 and a 5-year loan, and that's the only new item on this page. So any questions about the general revenues?
Councillor Miltenberg, please.
So that interest will be an in and out then?
No, it's interest that, because it's an internal loan, the township is self-funding the loan to the
okay.
to the residents.
Okay.
The interest is coming to the township instead of to the bank.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, just two things I'd like to cite on this page, if I could, please, Ellen, and one is down near the bottom, about maybe the sixth from the bottom, is transfer from general surplus reserve. We transferred 463,500 last year, correct?
So last year in the budget, we budgeted 463,000 from the general surplus reserve, and that was how we balanced the budget. At the end of the budget meeting, we were still under by that amount, so we decided to do a transfer from reserve. At the end of the year, we actually didn't need to transfer those funds because the operating and the capital surpluses, we actually had a small surplus of 148,000. So that's good news for the township. We didn't have to draw on the general surplus reserve.
Thank you very much. And that's something we should note, that we had a surplus in operation last year of 148K. Please continue.
Okay, so we'll move on to section, or page 2 of section 2. This is the council budget. So there's no revenue budgeted, it's just expenses and no major changes from 2025. Are there any questions about the council budget? Okay. Moving on to general administration. So this is the budget for the general administration department. So the office here, and any expenses that can't directly be attributed to other departments are also allocated to the general administration budget. Revenues are general in nature. We have budgeted 2 transfers from reserve. One is for the election, and one is for asset management to continue with our plan, and it's coming from the capital project carry forward. So it's just carrying forward a project from previous years. On page 4, these are the expenses. So the highlighted expense is the income, like there's an incoming transfer from reserve related to those 2 projects, the election and asset management. Also in this section is the grants to organizations, which we will go through in section 8. Other than that, nothing really major to report changes from last year.
Okay, Councillor Miltenberg, please.
Just a question about the budget for the election. I know we have to pay some every year for some random small thing, which is probably the 1781, but is that just a matter of timing, the 11,800 we thought we'd have to pay, or because that 1781 is like a yearly, just questioning why we thought we needed more.
Okay.
Happy we didn't pay it, but
So the 11,800 is including the transfer to the election reserve that was made last year. So we transferred $10,000 to the election reserve, and we do that every year so that on the election year we have an amount that we can transfer to offset. So
got it.
the actual expense this year that affects the budget is 10,000. Yes, 17 instead of 26. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And that's good responsible planning. Councillor Hickey, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question for Ellen. Halfway down the page, we have those 3 lines in red about grants. 2 below that, association memberships. It was 6,500 in 2025 budget, and you're up to 10,300 in this year's budget. Is there a reason why it's that high?
Thank
Yeah,
you. Ellen, please.
that is the new top aggregate producing municipalities of Ontario membership, which I believe is just over $3,000 a year, maybe 3,500 for that.
Thank you. Please continue.
So any other questions on general administration? We can move on to conservation authorities. This is the budget and draft work plan we received from the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority, which was presented to council at a previous meeting. We also have the tree purchases for our tree program, which we cut the tree purchases a bit this year, so it's a small reduction in the budget. Any questions on the conservation authorities?
Deputy Mayor, please.
Yeah, and I know this is probably an unfair question, but maybe Evan can answer it for me. The Conservation Authority probably will be gone by the end of this year. So will this still come into effect?
Ellen, please.
As far as I know, there's no changes, but I think the new changes are proposed for 2027.
Please continue.
Okay, moving on to page 6. This is the protective inspection and control budget. So this includes bylaw enforcement, our fire services, policing, emergency management, and also our community safety and well-being budget. New for this year is the property standards ad hoc committee. So we budgeted an amount there for the stipends for the committee members and any sort of education or communications related to that program. The new short-term rental program has been moved to its own department on the next page, just so we can track the incoming revenue and expenses for that project. Any questions on page 6?
CAO, please.
Just want to draw attention to council that you can see the OPP went up almost 100 grand. Just saying that out loud in case nobody's seen it.
And you know, those fixed costs, we have no choice over. Thank you. Please continue.
So on page 7 is the short-term rental budget, and it doesn't affect the budget because the budgeted revenues match the expenses. So at the end of the year, we will review this and just make sure that the licensing fees are aligned to the cost associated with the program.
Councillor Forster, please.
Okay, thank you. I noticed in the last page, there was a bylaw officer, the wages of 30 grand. So that's on his wages, or 4,000 on top of that?
So just what page you on, just for
The
clarification?
previous one. Page 6, it's at bylaw officer wages of 30,498 last year. So that's on top of that number?
Ellen, please.
Yes, so the short-term rental enforcement, we don't know what sort of enforcement it's going to look like as the program gets started. So we've budgeted 10,000. We've also budgeted revenue to offset that for the short-term rental department. So the actuals probably, we don't know what they're going to be, but we will know more after the first year of the program. But so the actual wages that are included in the budget are the $30,000 in the protective inspection budget for the bylaw enforcement officer.
Okay, I get it. Thanks.
Thank you. Please continue.
Okay, moving on to roads operating expenses on page 8. So roads administration is the wages and expenses for the public works superintendent, along with any insurance allocated to the roads department. It goes to this department instead of going to individual public works activities. And we've also budgeted some summer students again this year. And other than that, not a lot of changes in this section. Oh, actually, I should mention the pothole prevention revenue that is coming in. So that's good news for the potholes.
Yep. Thank you. Deputy Mayor, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, that was the question I had on this particular page, is that this is just all for administration. So this is just Tom's cost to run this. This isn't the lead hands or anything. Because they would be administration to me.
Ellen, please.
I believe that the lead hands are covered in overhead and other public works activities in the budget.
So this is just Tom's expenses here for him,
Well-
for administration.
Yes, and the insurance, which covers the whole, like, it's not just Tom, it's the administration and then costs that can't be allocated specifically to a job or activity.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Please continue.
Similarly, the roads overhead on page 9 includes things like the clothing allowance and IT. So our GPS and work order software, that's going to this department, motor oil. So items that we can't allocate to specific items. Any questions on roads overhead?
Councillor Snowblom, please.
On the previous page, Ellen, on page 8, I noticed that you budgeted at roughly 194,000, where last year's came in at roughly 222,000. You know, you're budgeting a little bit of a shortfall from the actual. but on the overhead, roads overhead, you've budgeted a little bit above the actual. Are you hoping that that might offset, one might offset the other in those departments? Or was there a reasoning on that?
Thank you. Ellen, please.
Yes, so the roads administration actuals last year, there was a one-time insurance related expense that did put the budget higher than, but the actuals higher than budgeted. So that's on the insurance line. And the legal line are just both higher than the budget. And we hope that they're not recurring this year.
Okay.
That's the
thank you.
goal.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please continue.
Okay, so on to page 10. Here we have bridges and culverts. And no changes are proposed from 2025. Roadside mowing, no changes are proposed. Brushing and tree trimming, a little bit of a reduction here just on the wages to reflect the actuals from last year. And ditching, again, no changes. So really consistent budgeting on this particular page. Moving on to page 11, we have catch basins, spray patching, sweeping, and shoulder maintenance. Again, it's just very minor increases or adjustments from 2025. Any questions on this one? On page 12, we have resurfacing, patching and washouts, grading, and dust control. And no significant changes from 2025. On page 13, the gravel resurfacing budget has been increased from 2025 because more work is being done on our gravel roads due to ongoing efforts to improve the gravel roads. So the materials and supplies and the services budgets in previous years were broken out, but they're all included in one line under services this year. Any questions?
Councillor Milberg, please.
Well, I applaud the expense of improving our roads. I noticed that our services are actually more than double from 25 to 2026 budgeted. And I'd love to hear what that is. While I applaud whatever it is, I just wonder what that cost is.
Okay, thank you. Tom, please.
Traditionally, the materials and supplies line was simply the gravel purchase, whereas the services line was hauling, crushing, and spreading. So, we combined both items in the tender, and I've increased it to reflect an additional 13 blocks of gravel that's planned to be placed in the northeast corner of the township. I had to look too.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Please continue.
For snow plowing, the budget has been adjusted based on 2025 actuals. So just a minor increase to reflect the winter that we've had and expecting if we have the same type of winter in the later part of 2026. And for sanding and salting, that is the materials that go into winter control. So again, it's been adjusted increase just to reflect the winter that we've had. Any questions on those two items?
Councillor Hickey, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's kind of between the snow plowing and the sanding and salting equipment rentals. You have them up in the 2026 column for both. What equipment are we requiring to rent? I'm sure that'll come down further in the budget with a request maybe for a purchase or something, but if you could just explain the rentals.
Tom, please.
So, the equipment rentals are the costs of operating our own equipment. So when it says equipment rentals, I charge myself for running the machines, and that covers the repairs. So you'll notice we don't have like a repairs line. So I budget so much into equipment rental if I go out and plow for an hour, I charge myself for an hour of plowing. And then I use the revenue from that to complete the repairs.
Okay, thank you. CAO, please.
I'm just going to clarify that a little bit more. So in 2002, I brought in this machinery rental thing. So it's to give a true value of what it costs to grade roads, because before it was just the expenses of the gravel and expenses of the labor, but didn't include the expense of the machine time. And it's basically machine time, which includes X amount of dollars per hour for the use of the grader, which it covers the fuel and all that. So we get a better picture of what the real cost to each job is.
Right on. True reflection of the cost. Perfect. Thank you. Councillor Forster, please.
Okay, this is kind of on Evans, so that you don't own the elevator thing, you have to rent that puts it in the warehouse?
No, we rented that out from Wes Riley, and that'd generally be under the sand and salt services line. It's generally about $1,300 per shed per year to rent the machine.
Okay, thanks.
Perfect. Councillor Snowden, please.
Thank you. I'm just trying to do a quick math calculation, Tom. There was a lot of chatter amongst municipalities this year because of the snow, the heavy snowfalls that we've had, that salt shortages, and because of the shortages, it was increased and several shortages. Maybe not necessarily next door to the municipality that has the largest salt mine in the world, but just going through a rough calculation, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it needs to be worth noted. It looks to me that there's approximately $318,000 increase just to provide the gravel and the salt and the sand. Does that sound like I've got my math right on that? And I don't want to sound like I'm, questioning this. It's just that I think the public needs to be aware of just how much gravel, salt, and sand costs, to keep the roads safe. That's not even including, the cost of the plow, the gas, fuel, and the maintenance on that equipment. And I'm saying this because, when you maybe we shouldn't look at social media, but oftentimes we see on social media that the roads department, takes an unfair hit from people when it comes to gravel, maintenance on the road, salting and sanding through the winter. And I think anyone that sits around this table would, disagree fiercely on those comments that we see on social media. So my comments are that I think your roads department is doing an amazing job on the roads, both in gravel, salt, and sanding, and keeping them safe and allowing people to get to work and buses to run on most days. But I just want to know if you can highlight better than what my math is coming out to, just exactly what the extra cost is with salt, sand, and gravel, if you could comment on that.
Thanks for the question. Tom, please.
So, as we recall, I know Wayne just mentioned the stacker being over the shed here. We had to fill up again in the start of the year. We don't usually have to do that. And so the materials and supplies budget and understanding and salting obviously has reflected that, and you can see that it's doubled. So we're basically starting the year with zero stock. So I'm gonna have to top that all up. The cost of salt is around what was it, $74 a ton. We buy under 500 tons of salt every year, and then I've also got the cost of sand. So everything's going up. It was hard to get salt because there was rationing on it. So it's an interesting process, and we're excited to do it again next year.
Love your enthusiasm. You're good with that response?
Yeah, I'm very good with that. I think because this is a public meeting and there'll be people watching this, that it's important to note that, you know, I think the roads department does an amazing job, and sometimes things are out of our control to the tune of anywhere from 300 to $500,000, just out of our control.
Thank you, please, for that. Councillor Miltenberg, please.
Yeah, I was just wanted to jump on what Anita was saying, because I had breakfast in a neighboring municipality and they were talking about a different neighboring municipality's roads. And then one person said, I think you look around and every municipality is complaining about the roads. Why aren't they doing a better job? And I said then, and I'd like to say it now, I want to repeat what Tom said when we were talking about in the spring. He said, I can do whatever you want, but it's going to cost you money. I can put on more gravel, I can grade more often, but it's going to cost. So either get lower taxes or you get poorer roads. Like if you want the better roads, and I think we do, then we have to be prepared to pay for them. Tom will do exactly what council directs him to do with the funds that we allot him. And I think you're right, Anita. I think the complaints I heard were not about our municipality, I should add. But I said, well, then you should probably look at the council's decisions about the roads budget if it's year after year and they have the exact same problem. So kudos, Tom, and kudos to us for supporting him. Okay.
Great. Thank you for that. Please continue.
Okay, moving right along to page 14. So here we have safety devices and signs. A bit of an increase for the material and supplies, I think, to buy some more signs, if I had to guess. Miscellaneous, this is just for, I believe our radio licenses get expensed to this department. Littering is largely the summer students' wages that go into cleaning up our roads and ditches and parks. And then sidewalks this year, it's a bit of a reduction, but we have included a capital sidewalk item in the capital budget. So you'll see $25,000 in the roads capital for sidewalk replacements, I believe, in Dungannon. Oh, sorry, any questions on page 14? Okay, page 15 and 16 are the budgets for the public works sheds. So these are the utilities and supplies that are related to the sheds and items that can't be allocated to specific pieces of equipment. So like small tools and fuel for the small tools.
Councillor Forster, please.
Thank you. I'm just curious, why is the propane so much higher at Colborne than the other sheds?
Thank you. Tom, please.
I don't have a great answer for that.
That's
Okay, it's
honesty.
just- it is what it is, right?
Honest is always a good answer. Please continue.
Okay, moving on to page 17. This is municipal drains related to our roads. So if there's a road that is assessed to a municipal drain maintenance project or a capital project, the township is invoiced and the expense goes here. We budget 100,000. Rarely do we actually spend that, but we don't want to be caught in a year where we don't have any funds available if there is invoicing that goes out and the township is assessed. Any questions on the municipal drains? Okay, page 18 and 19 are the roads capital budget, and I am suggesting we just skip that for now and we'll come back because I think that'll be a nice long discussion there. Page 20 is the public works machinery and equipment. So here is where all the revenue and expenses related to the township's equipment is expensed, and we don't actually budget any amount except for the insurance, which is known at the start of the year. So last year we had a surplus of 173,000, which was transferred to the equipment reserve. And I think that's great because this is that was the first year in quite a few years that we had a surplus, and that's because we increased our internal equipment rental rates. And now we have a bit of a reserve to help pay for equipment replacement down the road. Any questions on that? Okay, page 21 is our gravel pit farms. Revenue here is from the land rent agreements we have for some of the farmland. And the expenses are related to some rehabilitation on the gravel pit sites. The zoning and license application for the Reed Farm continues for 2026, so that's budgeted at 75,000 for 2026. Any questions on the gravel pit farms? Okay, page 22, 23, 24, and 25 are the streetlight budgets. Streetlights are funded through user fees, and they don't affect the township budget. The streetlight rates are set out in section 4, and we're not proposing any changes to the streetlight rates for 2026. Any questions on street lighting?
Councillor Miltenberg, please.
Yeah, and not really, but kind of, because we talk about it every year and we say, well, it's in and out revenue neutral. They get with the, are the residents aware of how it works that are affected by this? Like, did they get notified that if they want their street lights fixed, then they are to notify us? Like, sometimes residents are angry that we aren't fixing them, and I'm not sure, like, I know that, but did they, especially someone who's moved in the last 10 years, do they know that? Like, I don't, just a question, I guess, of process. Like, does everybody know what I know?
CAO, please.
They get the streetlight charge in their tax bills, so when they get their tax bill, they're well aware they get a streetlight. I don't think Tom's ever had issues with anyone. They always call him and he gets them fixed, so I don't think there's an issue with it.
Okay, so they know, because I have heard, why aren't they doing it? And I just say, call the township, so.
Yeah, so I can't tell you what the
Yeah.
people are thinking, but
Yeah.
I can say I think we get them fixed whenever we get a call.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Please continue.
Page 26 and 27 is the water and sewer department. So revenue here is from the water service rate and the sewer rates, which are again in section 4 in more detail. So the water rates council approved as part of the Waterworks financial plan in 2024. So those rates have been set, and the sewer rates for the Ben Miller Inn, the township collects fees on behalf of the inn and then remits payment for the operation of the sewers. There is a capital charge which was introduced in 2023 to help fund the overhaul of the sewer that needs to be done. And there's a small increase proposed for 2026 to offset the deficit from last year. So the costs associated with the sewer last year for capital work were higher than budgeted. So this year the township needs to collect money to recover those. So I'm not sure if we want to go over the sewer rates now. It might be worthwhile. So if you could flip to section 4, page 4. This is staff's recommendation for sewer rates for 2026. Now, as you know, the Ben Miller Inn owns and operates the system, and we rely on information provided by the inn to set the rates. Over the last 5 years, the rates have increased quite a bit, so we're recommending just a modest increase for 2026. We haven't received any audited financial statements from the inn, so as staff, we're not super confident in recommending any further increases until we have a full picture of the finances there.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor, please.
Yeah, just a quick question. When I looked at this, it says transfer from reserve. So is there a reserve for the Ben Miller sewer? Or did we take that out of our reserves, or the township reserves?
Helen, please.
So there was a reserve. So over 2023 and 2024, we were collecting $610 from those 23 properties, and we built a small reserve. Last year, the expenses that the inn billed us for the capital work exceeded the amount in the reserve. So the township funded it for 2025. There's a deficit of about $13,000, which is budgeted for 2026 to recover that. So that's the increase in the capital charge proposed from 610 to 1510 is simply to recover that deficit from last year.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you. And that was my next question, is how we're going to recover it, and you've all recovered that. So thank you very much.
Perfect. Please continue.
Yeah, the goal is that this capital charge will stop as soon as the project is complete, but as far as staff is aware, the project is stalled. Like we haven't received a plan on the capital work to be completed for 2026, so it makes it really hard to budget the amount to recover. It's not an ideal situation for us or the residents there.
Councillor Forster, please.
Thank you. And to your knowledge, this is plants in good working order, and like this thing failed, we have a catastrophe, right?
CAO, please.
That's up to the MOE to regulate, so.
Oh, so that,
Like,
okay. thank you.
we don't look after it. MOE will be the ones with the heavy hand come in if it's not working right.
Perfect. Thank you. Councillor Snowden.
So, overall, the water rates are, I believe, are based on based on our, expenses from Veolia. Is that a reasonable statement?
Alan, please.
The water rates are the services that Veolia provides are a component of the water rates that we set. There's also a component there for, keeping the pump houses operational, some repairs, and then capital work that we know has to be done over the next 50 years. So it's the services provided by Veolia are a piece of the budget. Yeah.
What percentage of the piece of that budget would you say that is? Like roughly 50%, 40%, 70%?
It's all in section 2, page 27.
Okay. I guess where I'm going with this is that, are we renewing, are we up for renewal with Veolia this year?
No, we have a contract in place. I think it's for 4 years, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That was where I was going with it. I just wanted to be certain. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, please continue.
Yes, so as part of the agreement with the Ben Miller Inn, council does need to set sewer rates. And the rates that we've proposed are 1,510 for the capital and 1,893 for the ongoing operation. So it is an increase for those residents, but what we don't want to do is we want to avoid just putting it off until the project's complete, and then we're sending a bill for thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of dollars. So I think this is a temporary increase, and hopefully we'll have more information next year.
Please continue.
Okay, so we'll flip back to section 2, page 26. So actually, we can just go to 27. These are the expenses for the water department. So the services from Veolia there are $344,000, but that's also services for water that are provided by Huron-Kinloss for the supply of water. So that line is not exclusively Veolia, but a combination of things. And then the surplus that is budgeted for the end of the year will be transferred to the water department reserve.
Councillor Miltenberg, please.
I feel like I ask this every year, but can you tell me again what the drinking water source protection risk management is? I know it's mandated, but I can't remember what it is.
Thank you. Ellen, please.
That is a great question. I think we receive a bill every year from the Sable Bayfield Conservation. I'm not actually sure what it's for. Tom, do you know?
Perhaps Florence, maybe you can, it's the drinking water thing yes, that's what it is.
That'll be the services provided for the source water protection. That's done through the Assalbo Bayfield Conservation Authority as well. It's joint with the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority, and they help manage the source water protection around our wellheads.
Perfect. Please continue.
I knew somebody would know what it is. Are there any other questions about the water department? It doesn't affect the budget, but it is good to talk about so we all know what's going on. No? Okay. Page 28 is the Ashfield landfill site budget. This includes tipping fees and any bag tags that are sold at the landfill and scrap metal. And you'll see there's a small surplus in this year's budget, but keep in mind that it has to cover the whole environmental services solid waste budget. So the next page, the Wawanosh landfill actually has $17,000 in budget expenses. So a surplus in one landfill helps offset a deficit in another. But really no major changes in the landfill budgets from last year. Moving on to page 30. This is our waste collection. So bag tag sales are to help offset the cost of the waste management services. And we have a contract with Waste Management that was renewed last year. And that's what you'll see under the services line. There is no budgeted amount for recycling on page 31 because it is now transitioned to the producer responsibilities. So it's, we don't have any costs associated with that anymore.
Councillor Miltenberg, please.
Yeah, just a question about the waste collection. When we signed that contract, I'm sure that we're transitioning at some point to bins, right? And getting rid of the bag tags. Do we have a year that we're doing that? I kind of thought it was this year. I must have got mixed up.
Please.
October 2024.
Okay.
I've been told like 3-4 times that we're any second now, so just stay tuned.
Okay, I thought it was 2026, so we're all correct.
It was June 2026, but June 2026 is going to be here soon, and there's no way we can get that project going.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Please continue.
Just another note on the waste collection. I believe the topic of weekly pickup is coming to the council meeting on Tuesday for an item under reconsideration, I believe. So that's not anywhere in the budget if you are looking for it. Any other questions on waste collection? Okay, moving on to page 32, municipal drains. Here is an expense for our drainage superintendent. We do receive a grant for about half of the superintendent costs. So the balance is funded by the tax base. So that is the $20,000 budgeted this year. Any questions about municipal drains? Page 33 is the building department. It is funded through the building department, so it doesn't affect the budget. We have moved the community on-site septic inspection program to its own department for 2026, and that's on the next page. This will help us track the sustainability of the program over the next, I think there's 3 years left of the first round of inspections. So after the 6 years, we can review it and make sure that we are recovering our costs and if we want to continue with the program.
Councillor Miltenberg, please.
Sorry, again, I'm sure I've asked this question, but we had COSIP expenses of about 167,000 and we don't have any budgeted. Can you remind me what that acronym is? COSIP?
That's the community on-site septic inspection.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
That's what's moved. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
that's moved. So no budget. It's on the next page.
Gotcha. I heard you. I
Yeah.
just didn't recognize the acronym.
I get it. So it's okay. Yeah, so it doesn't affect the actual township budget, but it is included here. Any questions on building or COSIP?
Councillor Hickey, please.
Just a quick question on page 34. Your COSIP expenses, you're expecting at 172,000 this year. What's in that expense column for 172,000?
Thank you. Ellen, please.
My understanding is that is the cost of the inspection, like the per inspection cost that Envision bills the township and multiplied by the number of properties that are planned to be inspected this year.
Thank you. Please continue.
Page 35 is the development and planning budgets. So revenue here is from planning application fees, the township share of those. And then expenses are staff time allocated to planning applications and zoning, and then the amount that is billed by the county that we pay the county for the planning services is here. And you'll notice that our legal expenses last year were over budget. So we've increased the budget for 2026 just to plan for inevitable legal expenses. So there is an increase in the budget overall, but hopefully the legal expenses aren't as high as last year.
Thank you. Councillor Miltenberg, please.
Sorry, but you know, I have my questions. We recently increased the development and planning fees, I thought, so that it would be more revenue neutral. And I'm not seeing that reflected in the budget here. Am I looking at it wrong? Or are we still not even close to being revenue neutral? We're just trying to get closer.
Thank you. Ellen, please.
If we were to take out the legal expenses and also included here is the economic development budget from the committee that was included, so the 24,800. If we were to remove those two items, we are really close to being revenue neutral for the planning.
Okay, thank you.
Please continue.
Page 36 is general recreation. So this year, we've included the completion of the Ben Miller Playground, which was started last year. So there's the pathway, the fencing, and some mulch and landscaping to be done. And that is fully funded from a transfer from the reserve that was done at the end of 2025. Another major item here is the Ashfield Park stairs, which are proposed for 2026. We've all visited those stairs, I think, on the last bus tour. And as people keep using the park, they want to access the beach, and it would be really great to have a set of stairs according to our recreation strategic plan. So I've also included a $38,000 transfer from our parkland fee reserve. We are required to allocate 60% of the parkland reserve fund every year, which we have not done. So the $38,000 from the parkland fees reserve would satisfy that. There's also some funds that we could transfer from other reserves, which we could discuss maybe after we talk about the roads budget, but just wanted to highlight that item there. Also included here is ACW's share of the Lucknow Recreation, which has increased over 2025. And the Goddard Recreation budget is maintained at $10,000, but we will be bringing forward a proposal from Goderich once we meet with them later this year about increasing that with a shared services agreement. Any questions on general recreation?
Nope, seeing none. Thank you. We should break sometime. When do you want to break? Do you want to go through more prior to a break, CAO?
10:15 is what I told.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
I think we can get through the last few pages of the operating, and then that would put us in a good spot. Okay.
Cool. Thank you.
So St. Helens Hall on page 37. Nothing really has changed from 2025, just for the rental revenues, a small increase over the budget last year. Just rentals have picked up a bit. Ben Miller Ball Diamonds. We've increased the budget slightly. There's a insurance item now going to the Ben Miller Ball Diamonds, and I believe some expenses related to the rolling of the fields will be done this year. So that's a slight increase.
Councillor Miltenberg, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to the St. Helens Hall for a minute. You see donation 7449. That's actually in memory of Ron Snowden. And the family is coming to the a meeting in April with ideas of how to spend it specifically, something with his name on it or something like that. And they actually have a fair bit in reserves right now, but they're planning on some fairly major things. We're just in the middle of that. But I wanted to highlight that the 7449 is quite specific in what we're doing with it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that.
Oh, yeah, that is a good point. The St. Helens Hall Reserve is currently, I think, just around $20,000, but 7,500 of that is restricted to the family's wishes on that particular item. That is important to note. Thanks. Moving on to Ben Miller Community Hall on page 39. Oh, 39. Here, a notable increase is just the insurance. We have implemented a low-risk insurance policy for our facilities. So the Ben Miller Hall does have an increase slightly there, as do the other facilities, but that is affecting the overall budget here slightly. Any questions on Ben Miller Hall? All right, and the last department here is the Colborne Cemetery.
Councillor Miltenberg, please. Maybe microphone.
When you talked about the insurance going up for Ben Miller Community Hall because of our new insurance policy, I'm pretty sure that insurance policy covers our green space too. Where would that be reflected?
Thank you. Ellen, please.
So in the general recreation budget on page 36, the expenses for the individual parks, so Petrie Park, general parks, has also increased. So it's been split over the general recreation, the Ben Miller Ball Diamonds, St. Helens Hall, and Ben Miller Community Hall. The one new policy, I've tried to break it up proportionately to which one has the most rentals.
So,
Okay, continue.
so the ones that don't have rentals, which would be Port Albert, Petrie Park, and the Ashfield Park, they might have some rentals, I don't know. That's included under general, you say? Their insurance? Because some of it must be attributable to that, right?
Yeah, so those individual parks do have a slight increase as well.
Okay, thank you.
So the Colborne Cemetery revenues have increased a little bit since we adjusted our fees. It's funded from both user fees and the tax base. The cemetery is considered a park too, so it is a green space that we maintain, but no major changes are proposed for 2026. Any questions on the cemetery? Okay, so the last page, page 41, the total deficit is 2.16 million, which we have to either fund through an increase in taxes, cutting projects, or transferring from reserves. So I think after the break, we can go over the roads capital, and that's where most of the budget actually is to address.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Erd. And probably a combination of that as far as an increase and application of some reserves and whether we fund all of these. I'm going to go to CAO and then Deputy Mayor, please.
Ellen, when were you thinking of going through the grants to organizations?
I didn't have a plan, but anytime.
I wonder if we should go through that when we come back. I think put that to rest and then we can move forward and then just focus on the item that you said, and then that should wrap the day up in that particular point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Yes, and if I'd like to ask Ellen, maybe during the break, because she's probably already got this on the go, is that what would a 4% increase look like, and how much will that drag it down that we have to take off the budget to get to that 4%, or different percentages, so we all have an idea of what that is. So I'd like to see that first before we go any further, and then that gives me an idea what we have to cut and what we don't have to cut to get to where I want to be. So thank you.
I think, Alan, I cited at the outset, 1% is 70,000 approximately. 5% would be 350,000, 10% would be 700,000. So it's 1% for 70,000. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, we're good with that? Okay, let's have a break for 15 minutes and then we will come back and we'll go to the granting section. So we're in recess. Oh, no, okay. We're recording again, so we're good to go, Ellen, at your pleasure.
Okay, so section 8 is the community grant application summary. So the first page provides a summary of the applications, and then the application is provided in the section that follows. So the evaluation score on the right-hand side of the page, that is staff's review of the eligibility criteria and the evaluation matrix, and staff is assigned a score based on that. And now we look to council for direction on which ones to approve under the program. So I think in previous years, we've gone line by line to consider each request. And I don't really know another way other than that. So the first request is Ben Miller softball for enrichment events at the Ben Miller Hall.
Yes, Councillor Miltenberg, please.
Can I have a different suggestion of how we do it rather than line by line, and we don't have to do it? We have the evaluation scores for a reason. So I think there's a couple different ways we could do it. We could knock off the bottom ones if they're not within a certain parameter, whatever is decided. We're going to stay with the 50,000, I assume. I think we should confirm that first, or pick a number. Or we could do which, and these, I say this because I've written enough grants that they do it different ways. The other way you could do it, or you could say, this is the amount we had, so you requested 2,000, you only get 1,500 because we didn't get the funds, if you want them all to go. So rather than trying to decide, I mean, to me, the point of the community grants was so that no matter what our particular interests were, they were treated fairly amongst each other. So rather than trying to decide which has more value to us as a council, I mean, these are supposed to represent all our citizens. I'd be more comfortable, A, confirming the amount we want to hit, and then B, saying either let's try dropping off the lower ones who didn't really match up quite as well, which they do in some granting organizations, or give them less amount. I mean, there's different ways to go about it than just eliminating ones based on what we personally like. And that would be one of my recommendations.
Okay, it's a, yep, thought. Councillor Hickey, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A fault of mine earlier in the meeting. I was all excited about today's meeting. I forgot to declare a conflict of interest for this section, and I'd like to do that now.
Okay, please.
For the request from the Huron County Plowmen's Association. And the reason is my two sons compete in that competition for prize money, so I'd like to declare conflict for that.
Good. Good with that, clerk?
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, there is a form that I'll need to get you to sign, so we'll work on that, okay? Thank you.
Okay, how do we want to proceed? Because some of these requests, the event has already happened. And, you know, I'm just going to cite number 9, the plowman's request for $200. It has a low score. However, that's important to a lot of our residents and our youth in ACW. So how would we like to proceed with this? And, you know, some of the, if we'll go to item 5, right at the bottom, that's already been approved and done. Deputy Mayor, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And first of all, that would be a good idea to go down through the ones that have already been spent and we take them out. And then I think we should, I think we should go down one by one because like there's a lot of them in here that I think we could take and instead of giving them money, like well, for instance, the Dungannon Pro Rodeo, do we not give them trucks and pick up garbage and whatnot there? So that could be our in-kind and not give them any money. because they are an established organization. And so if we give it in kind, there's other ones like the Goderich Lions Club. They're a service club. They shouldn't be in there. And the Huron County Pride Festival, same thing. They should raise their own money. And stuff like that. I think we should go down one by one and but we should find out, as you say, which ones are already paid out, because we can't take that money back.
Yeah, so, yeah, when you comment about in kind, like the public, down at the bottom, number one, the Brookside Public School, 2,500, that's in kind. So that's not actual, dollars that we would be granting, and the same thing with the Dungannon Pro Rodeo that you noted, that's in kind. Correct, Tom?
You bet.
Okay, Councillor Hecky.
Thank you. I'm kind of along the same line. If the organization has their feet under them already, I think it's time we pull back a bit. Otherwise, we're up to that 70,000 again, and we're standing here saying, well, how did we get there? So I would like to offer a lot of in-kind services to the ones that are in our area, whether it's garbage or equipment or whatever it is. I would lean heavy to the in-kind. Thank you.
Yep, right on, for the ones that we can. Yeah, so, okay, are you okay with that, Councillor Miltenberg? Comment, please.
Yeah, comment. So comments I've had from established, and I'm not talking Kingsbridge, and I don't want to throw the person under the bus, but they said, why do we get penalized for doing things properly? If it meets the criteria, it meets the criteria. And that's what this granting policy was supposed to be. Like, I mean, you said Huron County Pride and service one. Well, you know, you would say Lucknow Kinsman is a service, and so is United Perth Way, and so is the, you know, there's a lot of service clubs that are asking for donations. So I would not be happy saying, well, you're a service club, get out, because then now we really need a definition of what a service club is. And they were entitled to ask for the money. And if we're just going to go through and say what we like, what is the point of having an evaluation score? Because they're competing against each other for the same amount of money, and that's how grants work. Now, the boards and the council has some discretion, but if you say this is what is eligible, and you, like, do you really want to tell somebody who got a 95 on the metric that the 70 beat them out because it was the plowman's? I don't want to. Like, the metrics are there. We put them in. This is the first year for a reason, so that we could go through. So rather than eliminating them if they're not the bottom of the metrics, then give them all a portion and fix it for next year. But this is the way we set it up this year, right? This is what we said to do, and they did it. So why are we now going, well, we don't really think you're established, so that wasn't the parameter. That's not what we told them. People did work for this. So they've done exactly what we asked them to. So we either use the metrics, which they looked at and tried to make sure they met, or we give them a percentage. And if we want to do it a different way, then that's next year, because this is what we told them we would do this year. And I personally, as a grant writer, would not be happy if that was the decision.
Okay, thank you for that, clerk, please.
Just a suggestion, and I'm making the suggestion just because there's some indecisiveness, and I think it might be worth saying. If you decided that you wanted it to be 50,000 instead of 70, then reduce all of the grants who have been applied, reduce them by the percentage that meets that target. So that you maintain the integrity of the application process and the eligibility criteria. And if you say that it's just because of a budgetary concern that we want to reduce everything, if you reduce it by 25%, then all of them get reduced by 25%. Just a suggestion.
Okay, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, and I could live with that with this year, but in another instance, like, I have belonged to a bunch of service clubs, and a service club goes out and raises money for the community by putting on different things. As far as I'm concerned, they shouldn't be applying for grants from a municipality. They should be doing what a service club should do. So that's why when I pick these out, I don't think they should be there. So, but if we need to fix it, that's fine. And I think Florence had a good idea. Like, so let's pull it down to the 50%. And next year we fix what the problem is and march on. So thank you.
For clarification, Alan, I'm looking at the bottom, grand total request for 2026 of 69,000. And the pre-approved amount of 20,000. That's for the Minnesota Bridge Association. Is that correct or am I wrong?
That's correct. So the total new requests for 2026 is 49,187.50. We add the 20,000 that council approved in 2024, and that gets us to the 69.
Yeah, so the total request we have to consider is $49,000. Deputy Mayor.
Yes, and when we're looking at this, and I think everybody's probably had a call from the McKay Center for Seniors. They're saying that if we don't help them out with this money, then they're going to lose that grant and they'll lose a lot of programs in that thing. So if that's true, we should look at that. If it's not true, then we can just delete it all, or not delete it, but move it down in a percentage. Thank you.
Okay. A comment, Councillor Miltenberg, and then we're going to move forward to this.
I think that McKay Center and I do not agree on that. There are always multiple grants for every project that you try for. And the fact that they don't get this one doesn't make them ineligible or unable. And I'm happy to, I already mentioned too, that they could easily get. And they also could get the farm credit, which they are now eligible for because it was more than 2 years ago that they received it. There's a lot of grants out there. So being held hostage like that is not a comment that I agree with. And I really like Florence's suggestion. And I agree that we should stick to 50,000. And I think that if we want to fix it like Bill says, and that's a conversation, then that's what we do. We've changed it every year based on people come in and we were like, well, we didn't really intend that. Well, then it's an ongoing process. But this is what we told people we would do, and they did it properly. So I agree with Florence's suggestion. I agree we should stick to 50, which means there's $30,000 left and there's $49,000 in requests. And if they don't get the full 10 and then they're ineligible, that's not actually accurate because they did get in kind from the Dungannon, which counts towards that 10. So they're asking for the full amount when they don't actually need the full amount. They could still qualify with a reduced amount if you want to support that grant.
Okay,
Thank you.
Councillor Forster.
Okay, thank you, Glenn. The McKay Center, I thought they had to have that money by the beginning of March to qualify. Is correct or?
Ellen, please.
So the information that council requested, the McKay Center provided, and they provided an update that the Senior Active Living Center grant gave them a 3-month extension till the end of March to submit their documents and confirm funding.
Okay, good with
Thank
that.
you.
I think we need to move forward to this, and I think we need to talk about each one individually. So on this page, we see the scoring evaluation to take into consideration, and I think some of these can be addressed as we go, and then we can accomplish it. So if council's okay with that, let's talk about the first one. Number one is the Ben Miller softball. We see the request and what they're doing with it, and it's for $500. Is council in support of that or not? Show of hands, please. And that is supported by the majority of councillor. Councillor Snowden, please.
I think the clerk gave a really good suggestion about if we are reducing it, she put out a number 25%, then we should be fair about all this, because when you're going item by item, despite the fact that they've got an evaluation score, you're bringing in your own biases on this. And I think we have to keep in mind what Councillor Miltenberg said, that there was a process, so there was a metric for this. And I think the clerk made an excellent suggestion. My suggestion would be that if you're not happy with something, then look at the evaluation score and say anything below 70%, anything below 75%, anything below 80%, suggest that. And because that's based on data as opposed to based on opinion. And I don't think that we are in, I just don't think it's right that we base all this on opinion. They're all great causes. They're all great organizations. They all do great work. And we all know that organizations, whether it's the Lions Club or Ben Miller softball, they're run mainly by volunteers. And we all know that it's getting harder and harder to get volunteers. And if we start cutting based on opinion, I think we're going to really affect the ability for these wonderful service organizations to attract volunteers. So if you're going to go that way, Mr. Mayor, I am going to abstain completely.
Okay, how do we want to deal with this? Again, Councillor Miltenberg, for clarity, please.
I agree with Anita, and if we're going to go line by line and based on opinions instead of the metrics, I also will be abstaining.
Councillor Hickey, Deputy Mayor, and then Councillor Blake, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If that's the case, do we need to go through this list twice? Go through and know, because how are we supposed to know percentages if we're gonna get, over or under that 50,000 if we don't know like what we're gonna do at the last line? Do we have to go through once for opinion on if it's in or out? Then see what the values are left of that amount that we're gonna give? Or how, I don't know if that makes sense or not. That's my
Yep,
thought.
I understand what you're saying. Deputy Mayor, please.
Yeah, I'd like to bring this to a head. I'm going to make a motion that we do this on a percentage and it brings it down to the $50,000. And if there's a seconder, then we can either have discussion or defeat it, one or the other. Thank you.
Okay, a seconder for that is Councillor Miltenberg. Yep. or
Okay,
correct.
I just want to make sure that we do this without having to come back. So I've kind of half drafted something while we were sitting here. And I'm just wondering if we establish what that percentage value is to reduce it to 50,000 before. Okay, so so what I've got is that Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh Township Council hereby reduce the community grant draft budget amounts for each organization by % to reduce the total draft budget amount to $50,000.
It's kind of the intent.
Okay, I
Deputy
just,
Mayor, you're good
looking
with
at-
that? Yes?
Would we not have to exclude the 20,000 that we've already pre-approved?
Yep, that
I'm
has
looking
been
at Alan.
pre-approved. Correct.
I'm looking at.
Alan, please.
I was just going to ask for clarification on whether that was the intention of council, because like currently all the requests are under 50,000 if you exclude the 20. So are we actually just bringing all the requests down to 30? Is that the motion?
Yeah,
So to clarify, we're not talking about the capital and community partnership grant applications. We're talking about the community grant applications specifically. Because that's already to 50,000, that's at 4,997,000
we're already under 50,000.
for that one.
But on the top, right? But these last 1, 2, 3,
Right.
4 are not included in that, are they not?
Yes, that's right. So the total, in other words, instead of it being 49,000, you want to reduce that to 30,000. Or whatever that amount is.
Well, the 49,187 includes the community grant request.
Yes.
And the capital and community partnership grant request.
Right.
That is the
Right.
total. And then
Yep.
we add $20,000 for the Minnesotong Bridge, and that's where we get the 69,187. So the new requests this year are under 50,000. But we do have $20,000 pre-approved.
Right. So the requests we have are under 50,000. And we may eliminate some of these in the process. However, Councillor Miltenberg, please.
I'm not sure if Bill intended this, but one of the reasons I wanted them put together is because we say we're giving 50,000 and then we keep giving more. And we're talking about trying to cut budgets, and I know this is not going to mean that much, but I think we have to look where it is. And I would like the total number to be 50,000. Take out the 20,000 that we agreed in better times and make the 30,000, make the 49 down to 30, so it's 50, and then we're done. That's what I thought you were talking about, Bill. I'm not sure if that was.
But yes, if we can do that, that would be ideal. And then we just march on and then next year we fix it so that if there's some people putting in here that shouldn't be putting in, or we don't think they should, then we can take them out. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Blake.
Yeah, thank you. I don't want to make this more confusing or drag it on, but I'm going to. How does this affect the in-kind services? Seeing as it's not a cash asset or cash value, it's just in-kind services. I don't like I'm just going to use one example. If we go into the Dungan Super Pole with some graders and help with the track work as we have in the past, does that mean, we need to be there for 8 hours? Oh, but now we're only going to be there for 6 hours and kind of do a half job on the track. I just want to know what we're thinking for the in-kind. Thank you.
Yep, good comment. You know, when, for example, in that, if it's a request to do a particular job, yeah, you know, you're not going to do half a job. You're absolutely right. So Councillor Miltenberg's sentiment was we're at the 50,000, 49,000 with all these in. You'd like to get that down to 30. That's your sentiment, and that's what Deputy Mayor suggested. Is that correct, Councillor Miltenberg?
That was my understanding from Bill, which I agreed with. I appreciate Curtis's comment about how you're going to do half the track. There doesn't seem to be a tremendous amount of in-kind. What if for this year we said 50,000 cash, let the in-kind go and fix it? Every year we try to fix it better, right? But 50,000 cash, I think, is what we were looking at. I don't see that there's a lot of in-kind. That's a great comment, but I don't want to say you can only do half a track either, right? So, I mean, I don't know if we need to amend that motion, but Bill, that would be where I was going.
Clerk, do you have a comment, please?
So I was just going to say that if the motion stands, because it's been moved and seconded, and I'm just going to reiterate, who was the seconder on that one? It was
Councillor
okay.
Miltenberg.
If that's the case, I would like to have Ellen tell me what that percentage would be, so that we can deal with this motion. I mean, if obviously, like if the in-kind issue is an issue, then council would defeat it and we'd move on. And then we'd word something different again. So, do you have, or anyway, I'm just gonna.
And some of these may choose not to fund them. Councillor Snowden.
While Ellen's figuring that out, I'd like to respond to Councillor Blake's comments, and I agree with you. I think you bring up a really good point. You know, whether or not you reduce it by X percent in the in-kind services. I see the in-kind services because it's staff-based and equipment-based. And I think Ellen said earlier that there was a little bit of a reserve in our budget that, you know, there's probably a little room in there to squeeze that, that if you did reduce it by 25%, I don't think they're only going to do 75% of the in-kind services that they did. I'd be pretty confident that our staff are, you know, pretty dedicated and loyal, that they're not going to reduce that service. But how do you put that on paper? I don't know. But I think it does count as part of the percentage.
Councillor Blake, please.
Yeah, just a quick response. Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying. Obviously, we wouldn't go there and do half a track or whatnot. I just meant as a principle, if we're trying to look at this as a fairness, then you can't give full amounts to them and 75% or whatever it might be to others. Thank you.
Okay. Ellen, please.
So to bring the total request down to $30,000 total, it's a 39% reduction. If you remove the in-kind requests from the total, it's a 25% reduction. And if you remove events that have already taken place, that's another $5,000. But I think with the events that have already taken place, there needs to be greater clarification for those groups, because really their application now should maybe be considered for next year if the timing of their event is January, February. So I look to council on those two ones, because we did bring them back because that was the request, but technically we aren't to fund events that have already taken place if you look at the policy. But again, we can discuss that further.
Okay, thank you for that. So just to follow up on that thought process, item number 14 is $2,500. That's already happened. Is there more?
Yes, Goderich Lines, the
Item
Young
number,
Canada Week.
yeah, which item is that?
Sorry,
Which item is that?
number 8. So the number 8 and number 14 is
Yep.
already taken place. They're done.
Exactly.
I think maybe that Young Canada Week is starting tomorrow, I think, or starting today, maybe.
Starting tonight.
Yeah.
Yes.
So on those two particular things, they've already happened, and yeah, I don't know how you would deal with that.
So that's 5,000 that's off. Deputy Mayor and then Councillor Milton.
Hi. When I did this, it was only money that I had in mind. The in-kind would stay the same because as Evan, or not Evan, but Curtis said that you can't go out and do half a track or 10% less or anything like that. So I was only looking at the money rate of it and not the in-kind. So, and that does make it muddy because then that brings a whole different outlook to the total. So, thank you.
Okay, CAO, then the clerk.
So I have to say it out loud in case those in the room don't know that, but there are costs associated with in-kind. Just because you mean they're in-kind, then we still have associated costs because the guys still have to go back and forth to pick up garbage or take trucks or grade the whatever. So there is still costs. They're just not costs you can actually see. So
Right, clerk, please.
The discussion is moving beyond the original motion, so I'd like to deal with that, please, so that we can move on. So I have input the number that Ellen gave, so this is what it is, and if this makes sense, then I'll have Bill agree. That Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh Township Council hereby agree to reduce the community grants draft budget amounts for each organization by 39% to reduce the total community and capital grant draft budget amount to $30,000. Okay, that good?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Miltenberg, please, as the seconder.
I would like that to say, I was unaware that two of them by our policy are not actually supposed to be in here. I would like it, that motion, but with the grants that met our policy. Because that would put those two that have already happened, we would hold them for next year. And then we would hold them to the same standards as every other group who had to have it in by a deadline. And these events have been happening for 75 years, the Young Canada. So that's what I would like to amend the motion to, that grants that meet our policy. Because that would take 10,000 out and it would make it fair to the ones who came in on deadline. And we could then, I don't know what the right word is, table them, say now you're in line for next year if you want them. You've done it at the right time. I think we need to be fair to everybody.
So does Bill agree?
Just, Ellen, please.
Just to clarify, those two groups did submit the application by the deadline. We brought it to council in advance of the event, as we had in previous years, because the event was taking place before budget. And in previous years, I guess in their defense, council did approve it pre-budget. So I think the communication to the groups has been unclear, and I don't think it's fair to say, oh, we'll bring it back to budget and then totally dismiss it. But also the policy does say the final decision is up to council. So that's why it's here, even though we don't fund past events. Ultimately, it is council's decision. So
Yep, and yes, please respond to that, and then I'd like clarification on the 10,000 that you cited.
No, thank you for that clarification. If they had the request in by the deadline, then they do meet our policy, and I'm fine with them being in. I thought they came afterwards because we saw them, okay? So I actually don't need the wording. I agree with Bill now.
Councillor Snowden, please.
Thank you. I will be voting against the motion, and I'll tell you why. Because I think we're making this way too complicated. And first of all, you're including the bridge, which I think is an anomaly. It's not something that comes every year, although we made a commitment 3 years ago. But the other requests are, for the most part, an annual basis. And we also are having staff that are looking into the Sunset Community Foundation that might be able to take this off our hands. And thirdly, this is an election year. There's a good possibility that there will be a lot of new faces, maybe a few new faces at this council table next year. So I will vote against this because I think the right thing to do is pass the total amount, which includes the $20,000 because it is an anomaly, and we still stay under the $50,000. So that's my comments on the motion.
Just repeat that math so that I can absorb that, please.
Well, you take the 20,000 out of the Minnesotong Bridge, you're at $49,187.50, which is basically the 50,000. And they all have an evaluation score that's worthwhile. They all meet the criteria, and I hate, eh, I just think that we're making it way too complicated. I think in a year from now, this is going to be a non-issue. That's what I'm saying. So, like I said before, these community service clubs, they do a lot of great work. They do it, out of the goodness of their heart. It's getting harder and harder to find people with goodness in their heart to do this. And I think it's the right thing to do. So based on the motion of reducing it, which I do in principle agree with, I just think we're making it way too complicated for the reasons I've outlined: the Community Sunset Foundation, the possibility of new faces at the council table a year from now, and that it stays under the $50,000 if you take out the bridge.
Yeah, I agree. We want to make this simple, simpler than what it is now. So we have a motion. Would you please repeat the motion, and then we're going to vote on it.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Vanstone, seconded by Councillor Miltenberg, that Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh Township Council hereby agree to reduce the community and capital grant draft budget amounts for each organization by 39% to reduce the total community and capital grant draft budget amount to $30,000.
Okay, everyone clear on the motion? All those in favor? And that is carried. Okay. So now how would you like to proceed?
Ellen, are you clear on that?
I think so. I'm going to reduce each item by 39%. Is that correct?
Councillor Blake, please.
And just for clarification on the in-kind assistance, that won't be affected?
Your question was, it will or will not, correct?
It will or will not be affected
That is correct.
and reduced.
Clerk?
The motion just passed to reduce all of it by 39%. So technically speaking, yes,
That would include the in-kind.
that would include the in-kind technically. So
Basically, everything is 40%.
from this particular budget.
See, Councillor Blake and then CO.
Yeah, thank you. How do we go about, I guess it's up to the Public Works Superintendent to decide how the, everything's taken care of with in-kind, I guess?
CO, did you have a comment you'd like to share?
I'm sorry I brought this up, that we'd talk about it today right now. Maybe we should have left it to the end of the day. I didn't think it was going to be this complicated. I think if we're going to do in-kind, we got to do the in-kind. There's no halfway. It's just, we're going to do it. Ellen, can you just confirm the 39%? I'm just trying to do my math, and I'm just trying to clarify that. So the grand total is 69,187. You're taking 39% of it to get to, no, please explain for me. Thank you.
No, I'm taking 19,187.50 off of the 49,187.50 to arrive at $30,000. Now, if you exclude in-kind requests, the reduction is you only need to reduce it by 25%, because again, like, the in-kind is our best guess at staff time and equipment it's going to cost, but those numbers, there is an expense. So those are the request amount is our best guess at in-kind services. So I don't know how you reduce the in-kind services, but I don't know.
Okay, thank you. CAO, please.
So to clarify that now, if we are going to do those 3 projects in kind, next year when we come back, are those 3 in kinds going to be in here with a dollar value or not? Because they aren't. I think we just need to take those 3 out of the equation and deal with it. Because if we're dealing with the in kind, would there be a journal entry to this account for the in kind? And you're nodding your head yes.
Ellen, please.
Yes, so staff time is allocated to this general ledger account. There's Public Works employees will put their wages, and then if there's any equipment that is used, it's also allocated to here.
Councillor Hecky.
I just want to make a quick comment on my thoughts here. We're able to spend up to 50,000. It doesn't have to max out. Just because we have the 50,000, that doesn't mean we have to spend every penny. That's just my thinking here as I'm hearing people talk. If we only decide 20 because of the budget, we have to cut something. So If it's only 20,000 instead of the 30,000 reduced, or 10,000, whatever it is, it doesn't have to be maxed out and all spent. Thank you.
Correct, it's up to 50,000. It would be the desire. Is that correct or incorrect? Councillor Miltenberg.
Well, that's correct or incorrect, of course, but I thought we just agreed to spend 50,000, right? We did, yes. Okay, so we could spend more, we could spend less, but we agreed to spend 50. That was my understanding.
So does
Thank
that
you.
answer your question, Councillor Hickey?
Yeah, I supported that for up to in the draft budget, which in my mind, draft budget is a draft budget. That doesn't mean it's maxed at that. But maybe I misunderstood that previous vote we just had. But up to 30,000 is what we could continue, or up to 30,000 is what we could spend more of what the requests are here. That doesn't mean we have to, but maybe I heard that wrong.
Interpretation, clerk, please.
These line items are different than an operational line item or a capital line item whereby you budget 100,000 for a vehicle and it comes in at 85. These grants and organizations are counting on checks of $2,500. So, you know, if that's just been reduced by 39%, you're cutting a check for that amount less the 39%. So that money in that budget is spoken for and out the door. So, I mean, if like, yeah, I think this has to be treated, or in your minds, this is different than an operational line item because there isn't room for, because you already allocated it, you've spent it, the check is cut. Once this is agreed to and the budget is passed, then that check is cut and it's sent within the requirements of, you know, the process of issuing it. But by passing this amount, by setting this amount, you're dedicated to it.
Councillor Miltenberg, please.
Yeah, and I understand your question, Evan. When I got on council 12 years ago, there was no process for any help to community and grants and things like this. And that's, while I appreciate everything Anita said, and I agreed with most of it actually, the point of the budget was so that there was a way for people to get help. And at the time, council was quite against it because they said, well, now everybody's just going to come and ask for money. And maybe we're getting too generous. But that's why we set the 50 2 years ago. We've just never kept it to 50. And that's why I'm like, okay, they've had time to think about this. And if we have to be more strenuous about who actually, like we have metrics, but to my knowledge, and I might be wrong, we never said anybody under 75 is, you know, eliminated or whatever, right? And maybe that's something we need to do. I don't know. I'm hoping it goes to sunset. But the point, and Roger Watt and I did a lot of work to get this towards here, is so that communities, groups can come forward and ask for funds, but it's not a guarantee you get them, right? So like any grant. And that's why I'm comfortable with what we've done, because as we fine tune how we're doing it, it's kind of been automatic. And I don't think it should be. It should be a little bit based on merit. So you're right. And Florence is right, but that's kind of how we got to where we are.
Deputy Mayor, please.
Yes, I'd like to ask Ellen what 4% increase, if you could figure that out for me, and then how much I have to cut from this budget to make it 4%, then I can start looking through here, because I've got some things already tagged, like the stairs. I don't think we need the stairs this year, but if we could afford them, that'd be great. But I think we need to move on.
Ellen, I'm going to inject here. So I would suggest that Ellen has a good handle on. We passed the motion. It's been passed.
Yep.
We're going to reduce those amounts in that list that's in front of you by 39%. Correct, Ellen? We're going to change the budget for grants organizations. She's got 3 of them in the general budget. We're going to reduce that total amount because right now it's almost 75,000. We're going to reduce it to 50,000 because we passed that motion. Staff's going to go through that, revise that list. Council will get a copy of the revised list when we have this budget finalized. And the in-kind will be whatever it happens to be. I don't think we can do half the job or quarter the job. It'll be, and if it's over, it's over. like over budget. It is what it is, just in kind. We carry on and move on. We spent a lot of time on this and I think it's maybe time to move away, but is that a consensus of everybody? And Ellen, you're nodding your head. That's the way to go. Good, thank you.
Clerk, please. Thank you,
Just-
Mark.
Just a point of process. Once a motion has carried, you move on. There can be some questions of clarification, but if the discussion continues, a motion of reconsideration is in order. So that means that the member who's decided that they've changed their mind based on some clarification questions has a right to move a motion to reconsider. This just ensures that we move things along.
Mm.
Okay, so I'll just remind everybody that once we've made a motion and it's been finalized, that is the majority of council who's agreed, and we move on. Thank you.
So just for clarification, thank you for that. For clarification, with the motion, we are reducing everything by 39% and approving each one. Is that correct or incorrect?
You're reducing the amounts by $30,000. That's what you're reducing.
You're reducing the entire budget to by 30,000,
$30,000.
but reflects 39% on each one of those lines.
That's correct.
Right, and so we're approving each one of these with a 39% reduction.
That is correct.
That's what. Correct, the bridge is already passed. Okay, Councillor Hickey.
Just to clarify, can we do them all with my conflict of interest?
It is so noted.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so this should be completed. Okay, let's move, CAO.
So just to follow up with what Bill said, I would suggest that everyone go to section 5, page 4. And I'll pass it back to Ellen. I think that was the request for Bill. He want to look at how it affects, and all the numbers are there. And Ellen be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, so a 4% increase to the levy would raise an additional $276,534. So what that looks like for the bottom line on what is to cut, if we take the 276,000 and the community grant adjustment, that leaves us with 1.86.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Milton.
Might I suggest we look at 5% instead? Because if you look at what everybody said, and you throw out, we have Bill at 3 to 4, Anita said 3 to 4, no greater than 5, Evan said 3 to 4, Wayne said 4 to 6, Curtis said 0, Glenn said 5 to 7, I said 8. So if you throw out the high and low, which is me and Curtis, you have 5%. So if we're going to look at it, I think we should start at 4 and then we could go up or we could go down. I mean, start at 5, not 4, because that's closer to what a consensus is rather than 4.
Okay, so on that train of thought, 5%. Gotta get back to that page.
Just keep in mind, we haven't looked at the capital
I know.
section of the roads either, so.
So 5% would raise 345,000. CAO, please.
Yeah, I don't want to get in the weeds too much.
No.
I think we already got the consensus with everybody. I was just pointing out to Bill, if he didn't know where that was in the budget, that was how much the money raises. I still think we need to go back to the capital budget because there could be things in there that we need to look at, and that'll help determine council's final decision.
I agree, Councillor Forrester.
Thank you. And so that's with the surplus from last year off that 2.2? Or no?
Good question. Please, Ellen.
No, there's been no transfer from reserves from any surpluses in the budget yet.
Well, we usually like take the surplus off next year's budget, correct?
We have in the past, we've transferred from reserve an amount, but I expect we'll have a robust discussion about transfer from reserve as soon as we get to the roads
All right.
capital. I have some ideas, Tom has some ideas. I think we can get there.
Thank you.
So that's page 19 of section 2.
Yep, please lead us through it.
Okay, so the roads capital budget, I guess, actually quickly flip to page 18. So the revenue that is budgeted as incoming in this section is highlighted to the corresponding project on the following page. So the purple K2 Community Benefits Fund is offsetting the balance of work that's to be completed in Port Albert for the Market and Sydenham Street construction. That does not affect the budget. It's 700 and 700 out, and it's a carry forward from 2025. So there's no work planned as part of the Port Albert Servicing Master Plan for 2026. Any new work? We've budgeted 374,000 from the bridge reserve to fund the Nile Road Bridge project, which was approved in 2025. So that project is going forward. It's really not up for debate. The tender's been awarded. There is a small amount that still needs to be funded, but there is 374,000 coming in from reserves. I've also allocated 770,000 from the OCIF fund for a proposed project of the Nile Road resurfacing. That funding can be reallocated if council decides to move forward with a different project or not. So I put that in just because the Nile Road resurfacing matched the eligible projects for OCIF, but it can be moved around. And development charge revenue is being allocated towards the Westmount Line project. If that project is removed, the development charge revenue will also be removed because it has to be for a relevant project that is part of the DC background study. So any questions about the incoming revenue? Just to know that this will change as we talk about transfers from reserves, but I've just put in the amounts that are either already committed or have a good fit.
Yeah, thank you for that. Councillor Snowball, please.
Yes, can I ask Tom on the Nile Road resurfacing? Is that a large section, or I know it would probably tie in nicely with the bridge, but and I know that we, or at least myself anyway, like to know that we pave a road every year or do something with pavement every year. So I'm just curious to know, is it 5 kilometers, 8 kilometers, 2 kilometers? And if you feel that it needs to be done, or should we look at a different road, or is there a road that needs it worse than the Nile Road?
Thank you. Tom, please.
So through the chair, we can see on section 6, quote from a paving company to complete the work. It's page 12 of 26 in section 6. So Nile Road is 6.7 kilometers long. In the line item, I included the piece on Shepparton, which is just that little tiny section out by the highway. As discussed initially, the way that we selected the roads to be completed can be seen in the roads needs study, which is included on page. So if we go to page 4 of this same section, you'll see the proposed year of work for all of the roads going up to like 20 for the next decade. What we do is we look at, we set a priority. The priority is based on how used the road is. Now, Nile Road's gonna get bumped up in priority because it's one of our main roads, right? It's important that it stays in good condition, so it gets bumped up. Also for the year, we could have looked at North Street. We've always got Apple Lane. Apple Lane's got hardly anyone living on it, so it's low priority. It's in interesting condition. But because there's few people living there, we don't bump that up. If we paved all our roads in order of just their condition, you would have high volume roads like Nile coming to the end of their life, being in terrible condition before you address them. So that's the rationale. It's set out with the engineer and our employees driving all of the roads, giving input into the priorities. Like I said, airport has been on there for the past 3 years. It does not getting done. I don't suggest that we do it until the intersection gets repaired. North Street is also on there, and we kind of are taking into consideration all of the work that Port Albert's received in the past couple of years to kind of delay that for a future year. Yes. I did not put roads on the budget that I don't believe should be done. All this work's done at the discretion of council. I can tell Mark's wanting me to speed this up. So that's how much it costs. That's why it costs that much. That's where it's located, and that's why we selected it.
Okay, does that answer your question? Follow up, Councillor?
It does answer my question. I guess I was curious to know, like, I'm glad you pointed out what section and what page it was. I'm guessing you said 6 kilometers approximately. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's 6.7 kilometers. You can see that in the quote, and then it's 200 for that little piece of Shepparton,
Yeah.
and 370 for Proudfoot.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Clear on that, please continue, Alan.
Okay, so on page 19, we have the proposed capital projects organized sort of by asset class. So under bridges and culverts, there's $25,000 budgeted for minor bridge repairs. Those are repairs identified in the bridge inspection report that Tom believes can be completed by ACW staff. So the expense is a lot less than it would be if we hired out a third-party company to complete the repairs. Also included is a minor repair of a culvert in Port Albert, and then the Nile Road Bridge repair. The Laurier Line Bridge demolition, we include this in the budget every year so council is aware of the looming liability of that bridge. It will eventually fail and fall into the, is it a creek, I think? But we could either decommission it or let it fall. So we put that amount in just for your information. It can be removed if council does not want to remove the bridge this year, which is what we've done in previous years.
Yeah, if I could, just before you continue on that, I would like to have a discussion with council about that. I personally feel we should remove that from the budget this year. I would rather do resurfacing than spend $350,000 on that. It has lasted a lot of years. At some point in time, it will have to be dealt with. We don't know when that is. It might not be in our time. And so I would suggest it would be prudent to remove that from the budget, and I would open that up for discussion. Councillor Forster.
Okay, thank you, Glenn. I recently had a chat with a lady that lives up the road from that, and she says like there's holes in the deck now, and or what are your thoughts? Like, are there supports kicking in, or?
And would you talk to us about also the signage that's there, please, the usage?
So the pillars are are, I guess firstly, we have it looked at every 2 years by the engineers to see how poor a condition it's in. It is falling apart. The access is restricted to the bridge by concrete blocks, so you can't get across it. No one should be going across the bridge for any reason. The supports on the abutments on the bottom have kicked out, and for those people that don't know, it's a large concrete bridge that was put in there, I guess, when the highway was going in that direction. It's a big cost to get the bridge out, and most of the cost is putting a road down to it and then cutting the bridge up into pieces and pulling it out piece by piece. Should the bridge fall over, it's still going to cost a lot of money. We do have a lot in reserves. If you were to possibly wait until a big rainstorm and it does fall over, we could choose to have an emergency removal at that point.
But has anybody checked it since the last couple rain events?
I have not. It's in fairly consistent condition over the last several years, which is poor. It's a lot of money. It wouldn't be on my top of my list of things to keep.
Okay, good to know. Thank
Thank you. Councillor Miltenberg, please.
Yeah, I was actually sitting in the audience when council closed it. It was quite an interesting meeting, so that makes it more than 12 years ago. I know that in the past, we've talked about if it falls in, the reason it's so expensive is because they don't want anything to fall in the river, right? And that you've put up the concrete blocks to stop everybody, but somebody keeps moving them. And when my husband and I did a fall tour and went and looked, it was clear somebody had moved them enough that a four-wheeler was going back and forth on it. I'm wondering if maybe we could throw a few more concrete things so it's harder for them to move. I know we have signs, you've blocked it, but it's clear that there is traffic on it, motorized four-wheeler, that someone has moved some things. By the way, then I'd be happy to take it out.
Tom, a comment?
Yeah, we just recently purchased 6 more concrete blocks. We can put them over there.
Okay, so I'm going to ask for a show of hands if council is in support of removing the Laurier Line Bridge demolition from this budget. That is supported by council to remove that. Okay. Alan, if I could ask you a question on the Westmount Line Road and Culvert multi-year project 24 to 26 earmarked, I would suggest in green. Is there any, could we apply any gas tax to that? And if so, how much? And is there any other revenue we receive that could be applied to that, please, to reduce that 690,000?
Yes, so in the previous years, 2024 and 2025, we have used our Canada Community Building Fund funds, which is the former gas tax funds, on the Westmount Line culvert reconstruction. And there are some funds in reserve, and with our expected payment this year, about 300,000 that could be applied towards this project. So that's absolutely an option. I didn't include the transfer from reserve as the proposed revenue because it wouldn't cover the full amount of the project. But by all means, there's about $300,000 that could be applied. And for other funds that could be applied, there is the K2 Community Benefits Fund, which could be used to cover the shortfall for the Westmount Line project.
So about how much of that could be applied to that, Ellen, just for the math, please? I'm thinking when you cited the K2.
So it would be about, let me just see.
Is it around 300, Ellen?
Yeah, it would be under 300, because we also have development charges for that project, so there's funding available through K2 and community benefits. If council would like to apply those.
So if that was applied, how much would it reduce this page, Ellen? We've taken out the lorry line. And if you apply the grants you just cited, how much would it reduce it, please?
We could probably keep moving along while Ellen does that, like, or you got the answer right now?
Oh yeah, I'm just tracking my changes, so I'll be maybe a minute, just, Sam.
No worries. Councilor Miltenberg.
So question about that project. It says it's a multi-year project, 2024 to 2026. So I guess this question might be to Tom. Would that mean it's done, or was that just a phase and it was a 3-year phase 1, or what are we talking here?
Thank you. Tom, please.
Yeah, so we had the first year was the work on the culvert, the second year was the realignment, and then for those of us that don't know, in the road we have buried catch basins going up and down the hill, and they're below the gravel. So when we do go to pave it, they'll be raised up to the surface. So it's the intention's always to pave it. It's a connecting link between MTO Road, the asphalt there, down and around to Saltford. I've got the KMP trail up at the top. Included in the cost is sidewalk down through the gully. Ideally in the future, it's going to be connected from the trail into the development that's going on at Saltford. The road's supposed to be 6.6 meters wide with a 1.5 meter concrete sidewalk. We've got a couple options and the section 6, but there's an option for an asphalt pathway instead. It's about $21,000 less. So when we get the numbers in, I think another thing to keep in mind is I did not tender this out. I've got the quotes in from Lavis for other projects. From the time that I initially was talking to Lavis to the time that I got from the time that I was initially talking to a company about pricing for the roads to the time I got the price for the roads, I had a increase due to things that are going on. So they've put contingency in here, but it's not a final number like the road would be.
Councilor Miltenberg, please.
Yeah. Great answer, because we had talked about walkability in that when we were talking about it. So I don't think I quite heard the final answer, but then that road is done then, right? So this is the 3rd year of a 3-year project that we're talking about. Is that correct?
Yeah, and then sometime in the distant future, we will widen the top portion going to the trail, and whenever the old portion of asphalt gets paved, we might look at putting a walkway in beside that. It'd be up to a future council, but we can't do that if we don't do the middle piece. It's over the last week, it washed out horribly. It would be nice to get this thing paved and done with so that we don't have to go down there every time it rains to straighten it up.
Thank you. Clerk?
Ellen, just for clarification, can I just ask what is being applied, what we're looking at considering right now, just so that I am clear?
Yes, we're looking at applying K2 community benefits funding of 117,500 and Canada Community Building Fund funding of 300,000 towards the Westmount Line project.
Thank you.
So if we if we apply those two funds to the Westmount Line project and remove the Laurier Line Bridge from the budget, the total roads capital is reduced to $1,097,650.
Okay, so that page changes from 1.9 to 1,097,000, correct?
Ellen, just to confirm, you said $300,000 out of the gas tax, it used to be gas tax, whatever it's called now. And then what was the amount from K2? I thought it should be 217.5. You said 117.5?
Yeah, 117.5.
Okay, so they're still not funding the entire project because the entire project is 690.
And there's 172
Yeah.
from development charges.
Right. So then that still leaves $100,000 to recoup from taxation. Is that correct? I'll tell you what I'm thinking. So it's 690,000, subtract 172,500 from development charges. You good with that? And then subtract 300,000 from the gas tax, okay? And then subtract 217,500 makes the whole entire project of 690 recoverable by those three funds.
Yeah.
Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
so it's 217,500, not 100.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, 217.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm looking at it and I must have said 100, but
Yeah, I haven't lost it yet, Ellen, so thank you.
So then that goes, that with the application of those funds, that project goes to zero as far as cost. Oh, yeah, yeah. That's just discussion, okay? So I'm gonna ask for a show of hands. We've already dealt with Laurier, and I'm gonna ask for a show of hands if we're in agreement of applying those funds, reserves that Alan spoke of to this project. Show of hands if we're in support of this. Yep, we're good with that. The council supported. So the bottom line on this page now is 1,097,000. Is that correct, Alan?
that's correct.
So if this page, is this page complete now? And Councillor Hickey, please.
Thank you. Question for you to Tom. The gravel roads upgrade, can you explain that section? It was, in 2025, you had 80,000 allotted for that. And can you explain why only 37 for whatever reason it happens? Why 37 was only spent and why we're down to 30 for 2026?
Thank you. Tom, please.
So we had a lot of expenses that I could have allotted to the gravel road upgrades last year that I allocated to the main gravel budget because I hadn't used it all, and the brushing budget because I hadn't used it all. We've been falling behind a bit on the brushing because the winter's so long. Usually we're able to get in and cut some trees sooner. For the $30,000 for this year, and it's not really a downgrade from previous years because we've bumped the gravel way up. I'm looking at improvements on Dungannon Hill, where the spring comes out, that we've talked about in the past. There's consistent problems on Zion near Lucknow Line by the bridge and Cransford Line near the bridge for water issues. So we're hoping to address that by putting in some supplemental drainage. So that's the plan for the 30.
Okay, thank you for that. Yes, Councillor Miltenberg, please.
Two questions. When you said Dungannon Road next to the spring, is that near the feed mill?
The springs in the middle of the hill where it
Crossroads? Are we talking?
you go up past Saratoga and you keep going
Oh,
up
okay,
up the
okay.
hill. Up the hill, there's a spring right in the top third of it, and
I know that road quite well.
yeah,
Okay.
it runs out and it washes out, and we've widened it out and done some shouldering up there and trying to guide the water off of it, but I've still got water coming out of the center of it. So we're gonna try and install some drains there and see if that can address some of the problems.
Secondary question?
Yep, absolutely. Follow up.
So, I'm glad Evan brought it up. It was on my radar too. I kind of thought that was, and I like what you're doing, but we did try putting tiles somewhere in the former Wawanosh ward, and I thought that's what this referred to. We were gonna see if it worked. Are we waiting to see this spring if it worked? Is that the thinking of that? And I'm not gonna quote you the right road because I can't remember. You changed it though.
Yeah,
It's over-
so I was down, it's on Creek Line, and I drove over it on Wednesday. It's still half frozen. I don't have a good sense of how it's working yet. It did seem to melt in the center of the road away from the drain. So I don't know if it's let the water out and that's why it's soft in the center, not on the sides. But it was, the reason we selected that spot is because it was one of the worst spots in the township in the spring. So we're keeping an eye on it.
Yep, please follow up.
So what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, as I often am, is the plan for our poor gravel roads this year is to put a whole bunch more gravel on them, monitor what we've tried, fix it through a few other bad spots, and then it would be next year that you'd be going, boy, this did work or it didn't work, we should be trying this? Is that how it works?
Yeah, so we're trying to target spots that I get a lot of complaints about and overall increase the gravel that's going down onto the roads so we can help shape them and build them up. So it'd be going from every other year to every year in the poor areas. So that was the suggestion from the engineer's report. It's something we're trying. It definitely can't hurt.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Forster, please.
Okay, thank you, Glenn. So I was on that road on Tuesday and Creek Line past Belfast, and it had one area that was wetter than the others. Why is that? But other than that, it was in good shape other than the one wet area, but
Yeah, it's really weird. I'd have to dig. It could be that it thawed sooner than everywhere else. It could be that there's a giant frost lens right there. There's a couple spots like that in the township where there's just a soft hole. That's why I don't know. It maybe it's thawing out quicker. We'll have to wait and see. It's currently there's a blizzard out, so we'll wait a couple weeks and see what we get.
Okay, Alan, maybe this is a premature question. With the changes we've made to this page and the changes we made to the grants, what is our number at that we still need to address as far as a deficit? Do you have an approximate, please?
So the bottom line number on page 41 is now at 1,268,500. So we've cut or raised from reserves a total of 950,000 so far.
So what is the number at? You say that again, please?
1.26 million is the new bottom line number to cut.
And I'm just asking, do you suggest applying any other reserves to this or not?
So I would say under the general recreation budget for the stairs that are proposed for Ashfield Park, that project.
Let's talk about that. What
Yep.
page is that, please?
That's on page 36. So that project would be eligible for K2 funding. So that's the Community Benefits Fund. That is a project we could apply an amount to. So that is available.
So the cost of those stairs is 225,000, and we could apply K2 funding to that project for that number. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I think we all realized when we saw that in the tour that it's prudent to address that because there's a challenge as far as that situation there. Councillor Hickey.
Might be a silly question, but just to throw it out there, like when we got the roadway there, people can walk down. Do we need the stairs? That's my thought. What's the return on that for the 225,000 when there's a roadway right there?
Tom, please.
So as we've gone over last year, we've got an issue with the amount of real estate we have at the bottom of the hill. It gets extremely congested down there, and then people can't get up and down. In the master recreation plan, the recreation master plan, the idea is to have people park at the top of the hill and then use the stairs to get down past the new bathrooms to the beach. And if we could possibly reserve some parking down there for people that are unable to walk, that would be the ideal thing. Every year the police get called down to the park. I've got people camping and parking all over the place, parking on the beach. We're trying to make upgrades at that park because it's obviously used quite a bit. So yeah, the reason we're looking at that is because of the use of the park.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Hickey? So, yep, Councillor Forrester, please.
I don't know if this is what you're getting at, Evan, but you can walk down the road. I'd rather walk down the road than take stairs myself, but I don't know. But you said you're gonna have that open for accessible parking, correct? I don't know how you're gonna stop everybody from going down there and parking and causing the same problem, but
I think the way you try and get people from going down there and parking and causing that problem is by giving them a good option that they could follow the rules and park at the top and then leave some parking at the bottom for people that can't. It's hard to enforce. I have issues with the people that live around there trying to use the same area. So we're trying our best to organize the park.
Yep, there's a real issue with some residents in that area that have expressed a concern about that, and the stairs would help to alleviate the congestion. Councillor Miltenberg.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much all the counselors use that, but that's a terrible road to walk down. It's terrible. It goes all over, it's way longer than it needs to be. There's dumb people driving on it. And yeah, I mean, you know, I hate taking money out of reserves, but I would take it out of reserves to make steps if it was feasible there. That's a terrible, terrible spot. And I get complaints from the people living by and they're like, why are you trying to get all the people from the city to use this park? Now you've put bathrooms there. And then there's the people who go, well, at least it stopped them from defecating on my lawn, you know, like the people found it during COVID and that's all there is to it. It's really overused and it's a disaster back there and a lot of locals are complaining about it and rightly so.
Okay, Councillor Snowden, please.
Thank you. Tom, just refresh my memory. Will you be replacing the stairs potentially with basically what's there? Were you going to make the stairs less of a rise, or are you going to make it wider that, you know, say if a couple was taking a cooler down there, they could each hold a handle of the cooler, like I guess my question is it piece of wood for piece of wood, or is it going to be improved?
Okay, Tom, please.
Yeah, so if we look at page 24 in section 6, we've got a little quote for the stairs and how they're to be installed, and it's to be done to our accessibility standards. So they've got to be a certain width, they've got to have handrails, they've got to have landings every so often. These are just it's just a preliminary number. Why is it so expensive? Because it's on a area that is prone to a lot of erosion, and you've got to get permits for the Department of Fisheries and Oceans to do work there. And might there be options for less expensive things? Possibly. We don't know until we tender it out.
Thank you. I just go back to Councillor Hickey's comments that and as far as payback goes, I think that's a way to look at the payback on that, if they're improved as opposed to just replacing the structure from what it is currently.
Okay, thanks for that. So I'm going to ask council, and I want to be sure we're clear on this. Ellen, you suggested that the K2 fund could be applied to cover all of this project. Is that correct?
That's correct. We do have $38,000 currently in the budget from our Parkland Reserve Fund. So it would be the balance there, the 187,000 unfunded portion from K2.
So between the K2 and the other 38,000 from the parks.
Correct.
I'm going to ask if council is in support of moving forward with this. A show of hands, please. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that is supported by council. Thank you. Is there anything else in this page to discuss, or you're good at that? And we'll give you a moment to come up with the number we have now, please, when you're ready.
So that bottom line, page 41 deficit is now at 1,081,556.
Say that again, please. 1,800,000.
1,081,556.
I confirm that number.
That's good. It's good. Okay. What else? Ellen, please.
So just back to roads capital, because that's where the bulk of the budget is on page 19. We haven't really talked about all the projects, but we do have an amount for a new pickup truck and a new grader, and those are part of our capital replacement plan. It would be I think, a mistake to not go forward with those. Just we have old graders in our fleet, and if you don't replace them, then it's just pushing it further down the road. The Proudfoot Avenue overlay, that's another road project that we could apply some of the K2 community benefits funding towards. There were several years when we didn't use any K2 funding because the Port Albert projects were deferred. So our reserves are quite large for that particular fund. So another $65,000 to cover the Proudfoot Avenue project, I think would be suitable if we're looking for items to transfer or cut.
Right, so K2 could fund reserve could cover that 65,000, correct? That's what you're saying?
That's correct.
So I'm going to ask council if we're in support of this. A show of hands, please. And that is supported by council. Thank you. And a question, Councillor Moon.
So far, I'm really in support of everything we're doing. Good job, team. But can we now keep a running total of what we're, like what's coming out of reserves? So when we say, yeah, we'll do K2 that and that K2.
We are,
Okay.
Yep.
Can I hear what we're at with the 65?
when
Yep.
our treasurer is ready for that.
Yep.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
Councillor Forrester.
Where exactly is Proudfoot Avenue?
It's in northmost Dungannon. On the right. It's the last road on your right out of town.
And Alan, if you could give us that number when you have it. No rush.
It's 1,016,556. Helen already knew that. She just wanted me to say it first.
Making progress. Councillor Snowden, please.
Ellen or Tom, either one. Can we talk about the public works sheds upgrades for 84,686? I know that we've done some upgrading on some of the sheds.
Yeah, what page are you on, Councillor
Oh,
Snowden?
Page 19 of 41 on the, it's under facilities. Oh, that's already been
That's already
spent.
spent, yeah.
Oh, I
The-
see.
The budget's
Okay.
only
Oh,
8,000.
8,000. I'm sorry, I was misreading that. My apologies.
Do you have other items, Alan, for our consideration?
Not really. I think really now it comes down to the tax increase that we want to proceed with. And then from there, we could discuss more about transferring from reserves, but I think knowing the tax increase is important, I think, at this point. So we know what we're working with.
So I'm just going to ask a question. If Mark cited the number we're down to, if we applied a 5% increase to the levy, what would the balance be, please? The question was what page the levies are on.
Section 5, page 4.
Mark, you probably already got that in your head, eh?
Yeah, I'll have it in 2 seconds.
So I think it's 670,889 with a 5% increase.
670,889. Yep.
Okay, I'm just going to ask a question. Can we take that from reserves? General reserves? Alan, please.
Yes, so we do have a general surplus reserve that is grown over time from surpluses. Some years are larger than others. Last year was 148,000. And last year, similarly, we budgeted almost 500,000 to balance the budget and didn't have to use it. So absolutely, we could allocate that to come into general revenues to balance the budget. It's not a super strategy, but like we do have the funds available in our surplus reserve. So I think that would work.
And if we did that, I'm just extrapolating, what would our general reserves be at then? Approximately, please.
I think they would be just around 9 million, but I can confirm that.
Keep in mind the reserves that you are in your binders, there's some that are just, you can, there's for specific projects, you know, there's a lot that isn't, but there's a lot that are, that like the water and the street lights and things like that. They're specific, and even the development charges.
Okay, so on that, your comment, if we took 670,889,000, no, $889 out of reserves, we're still at 9 million. Councillor Snowden, please.
You're going too fast for me with all these figures. I can't write them down that fast. Can you get me to the point where we're at the 670, whatever you just said, thousand? Cause I was at 1,016,556, and I don't know where I missed something after that. Can you just
Al-
go over it a little slower for me, please?
For
So I can
sure.
catch up.
So we've applied a 5% levy increase of 345,667,000, and that brings us to 670,889, which there's discussion about taking that from general surplus. I'm just going to confirm those reserve totals. I think 9 is an overstatement, so stand by.
My number I have is 9,072,883, but I'll let you look at that and I'll let the discussions continue.
So our reserves would still be in excess of 9 million. Councillor Miltenberg.
I'd be happy to answer it.
Well, super.
Point of
Um,
order, just while we're figuring that out, if we could pass a motion to extend the hour, please.
I would entertain a motion to extend the hour, and that is Councillor Hickey, seconded by Councillor Blake. All in favor of the motion? That is carried. Thank you. So please ask your question, Mark.
So my question to Mark is something that Ellen said. She said we could do that, but that's not a super strategy, but it could work. So when I hear it's not a super strategy, I think, why not? What makes it not a super strategy, Mark? Would it be how much we'd have to increase the taxes next year to get the same thing? Because this really isn't sustainable, I think, to keep that, taking that much out of reserves.
Ellen is listening, so I'll tell you what I think is this, that you're taking a lot of money out of reserves. We're trying to build reserves so we can do all this work that Tom has proposed, that we talked about in section 6 about all the bridges and roads
Right.
we have to do.
Right.
And I think the beginning of the day, I said we need to continue to build the reserves. So when we do the projects, that we can transfer some of those funds out of reserves to do it. But I don't want to deplete the reserves too much, but that's not the whole point, to balance the budget. But I'm going to let Ellen try to explain her point of view. That was my own opinion. Thank
Yes,
you.
the super not a super strategy. Could you extrapolate that or whatever?
Alan, please, and what is better?
So it's not a super strategy because, in my opinion, a super strategy would be one where we are budgeting transfers to reserves. But reserves are there for stabilization. And in this case, it's a good use to put off big tax increases in one year and maybe draw them out over several years. But I think our reserves are healthy, but the ongoing practice of pulling from reserves to balance a budget, and it seems to be in an increasing amount. So, you know, last year's 460,000, now it's 670. It just could become a trend where we're just deferring major capital expenses that should be funded by the tax base to later years. So in terms of a strategy, it is fine. It's in this case, it's effective. And I confirm that the reserves as budgeted would be at 9.25 at the end of the year. Now, some of those are restricted reserves, so they're not, we can't just apply them to offset the tax increase like we are doing now. Like, there are restricted reserves. So I think I'm just going to get the total. So the general surplus reserve as budgeted would be, keep scrolling, would be 1.9 million left at the end of 2026 if we had to transfer the full 670.
Yep, okay, please continue.
Rats. And I'm not repeating that, guys. No. Okay, and keeping in mind my fellow counselors' comments, which I do appreciate, though I don't always agree with, I think it's hard for me to get my head around 600 some $1,000 worth of reserves. However, last year we said we could use 485 and we didn't use that. I'm okay carrying that forward to this year and taking half as much. See how I can rationalize anything? And getting us to that 600 some thousand out of reserves, because we agreed to it last year and now we're taking half as much. That's how I'm thinking of it with a 5%. That's more reserves than I really would be happy with, and it's a lower tax rate than I would be happy with, but I can work with that.
Okay, Councillor Blake.
Yeah, thank you. That's actually the point I was going to touch on. So just for clarification for everyone, last year, I believe the number was 460 or 470,000 that we had talked about taking out of reserves. But I just want to double check. We ended up actually putting into reserves 100 and some thousand. Is that correct or incorrect?
Ellen, please.
That's correct. So last year we had 463,500 budgeted as general revenues to offset the operating budget. We actually had an operating surplus of 148,000 that got transferred into reserve. So that's a good news story, and a great point, because if you take the 463 that we were going to do last year, add the 150, we're carrying it forward to this year and using it to offset the tax rate. So I think in this case it's appropriate, and I'm okay with it.
Okay, Councillor Snowblen and then Councillor Forster.
Thank you. I was going to make the same point too. And as much as, I guess when I think of increases in taxes, I always try to keep an eye on long-term visions. And we've had and enjoyed, some prosperity in the township over the last 6-7 years. And I think that's part of the reason why we've been able to do what we've been able to do. And by putting those reserves aside, the fact I don't like taking 670,000 out of reserves either, but I also recognize the fact that, people are hurting. People are really hurting because of the crazy world that we're living in right now. And Councillor Miltenberg touched just on the price of groceries. I know what I spend on groceries for a single person. I can't imagine how difficult it is for perhaps a one-income family with a couple of kids. It's got to be seriously difficult for them. And that's what I'm looking at right now, is just the difficulty that people are having to be able to put food on the table, let alone pay their utilities, let alone try to give their kids a little something under the Christmas tree every year. Putting this on their taxes now is really difficult for me. And when things are prosperous, that's when we should be looking at 10%, 12% increases in taxes, so that when we get to a stage like this in our economic times, that we can draw out $670,000 out of reserves and not have it really bite into the township and hurt the residents that are counting on snow removal, sidewalks, street lights, and gravel on their roads, maybe a new pavement. So as much as I I'm reluctant on the 5%. I will go to that, and I will agree to that. But I hope for going forward that future councils will, look at when things are prosperous, and I think they will get prosperous. Why would I doubt that? We built a subdivision, and we've got lots of improvements in Port Albert, which are in our two major growth areas that perhaps someday down the road, we're going to enjoy some benefit from that. So I remain positive that the township will get into a position again of where we were 5-6 years ago over the last couple of years, where we can build up the reserves again. But this is the rainy day fund, and it's a snowy day today, but it's been rainy, so I can live with this.
CAO, please.
I just want to clarify about the reserve. So at the end of the day, we're transferring more than that 670. That just come out of the general surplus. We're transferring 1,440,389 out of reserves, out of our 10 million some reserves, to bring it down to 9,072,883. And I'm looking at Ellen to nod her head. Yep. So yeah, I just want to clarify that it's more than the 670. Grand total 1.44083389. Ellen, you're got that? Is that confirmed with all that?
Yep.
Yeah, and yes, that encompasses all the different reserves. Councillor Forrester.
Okay, thank you, Glenn. So that 500,000 that went into the general surplus, so that does come from things under budget, or? Because we were supposed to spend 400 and some thousand, and then you put 148 back. That was the surplus, right? So you're talking like $500,000. So 485 never got spent, and then the 148 was what we put back in, right?
Okay, Ellen, please, the response.
So the overall surplus was 148,000. So that means that there were projects that were under budget, some were over budget. Overall, we were under budget by 148,000.
A grand total.
The grand
The
total,
whole
yeah.
town, yeah, not just the roads capital, everything. the
But
entire
we
town.
never took the 485 out, right? Either. So it's 500,000. So that's what we were supposed to take out of there last year, correct? 485,000? That never got taken out.
Yes, but that is part of the whole budget. So we used that amount to balance the budget last year,
Yeah.
and projects went over, project went under budget. And so that one line item is 0 for the actuals.
463,500 was to transfer the general reserve. It didn't happen. Why? Because we didn't need it. Because all the other projects within the municipality or operation maintenance were under budget. So, and it's good bookkeeping and great staff to make sure we keep costs down. So,
But you're talking $500,000 pretty much, right? Yeah, that's a lot of money in my little world. Okay, thank you.
maybe Alan's going to add to that because you make that comment. I think she needs to clarify that. Thank you.
Yeah, it's also revenues can be higher than expected too. So it's expenses are lower, revenues are higher, or mix of both. Capital projects coming in under budget. Capital project surpluses, so the project's complete, we budgeted amount, it's over, it just goes down to the bottom line and we will carry it forward. So I think having the transfer from general surplus is to balance the budget, it works, but I don't think we want to actually see that number be aligned with, like, we don't want the actuals to be as high as we budget. So it's there as a stabilization line item, but the goal is to get it as close to 0 as we can.
Yep, CAO, please.
And it's all a good news story. It'd be better having a surplus than a deficit. I'd rather be talking to surpluses and putting them into reserves than the opposite.
Yeah, and we have our staff to thank for the prudent fiscal responsibility of the programs. Councillor Hickey, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All this discussion is at the 5% tax levy. I still have 4 in my site. Couple questions for Tom about the machinery and equipment purchases.
On page?
Page 19 of section 2. Like there wasn't any discussion or much discussion about, say, the pickup truck. Can you explain what is getting replaced and if it needs replaced? I'm not gonna argue much about the grader, because I know we've talked about them in past years about how we're behind on those already. But I'm looking at the pickup truck, the slip tank, water tanks and pumps, just to ask about those because a couple times in this meeting, we've heard 70,000 equals a % increase on the tax rate. So 65,000, that pickup truck is a % increase. Is it needed? Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Tom, please.
Yeah, so we replace a pickup truck once every 2 years. I've got one that's gonna need a transmission rebuild and another one that's got an engine knock with low oil pressure. Um, the slip-in water tanks, if it does not rain for a month, it is incredibly hard to grade. And you will get calls about washboard. It's potholes when it's wet, washboard when it's dry. I've got a company that supplies the tanks. They're $18,000 per tank for 3,700 gallon plastic baffled water tank. I also need to get a pump to fill them, and then we go down to the hardware store and get material for a gravity bar. That's to replace a single. We had an old water tank that doesn't hold water. It's an old metal one that we got secondhand. I think they're essential. I've got a pressure washer that's to replace the one in Wawanosh. I've got the grader. I got a quote on the grader. You can see that the previous one, and it's the exact same unit, it's over $100,000 more. I don't know why in 2 years it's gone up $100,000. When we go out to tender for a grader, I don't play favorites with companies. I'll take whatever's cheapest if they're comparable. So I'll let the companies know that when we go to bid it. The public works shed upgrades, I've got $8,000. That's for lockers for all locations and shelving. I actually need another 10 there because I did not get some electrical work done in the previous year that I should have. You can see that I had budgeted 127.5 and spent 84 last year. The graders I've got, just if we want to talk about it, the position we're in with the graders, you've got 6 graders. 2 of them are 20 years old. I've got another one that's 21 years old. You're going to be in a position coming up extremely shortly where you've got a bottleneck of graders that are old that aren't being replaced with new units quick enough. I don't know if anyone's ever called me this winter and asked why a road's not being plowed, and I said the grader's down, or grader's parked on the side of the road. How come it's not grading? It's because I've got rear ends that go out of them and engines that head gaskets go on them. I think we've done 2 head gaskets and 2 rear ends since I've been here on the old Volvos.
So the tanks are to improve the grading of the roads. That was a priority of council. Please continue with your question.
Just a follow-up question. I understand now the slip-in water tanks and pumps are essential because we don't have them and they help what we're doing. Can you explain about the truck fleet? Like you talked about the grader fleet, how old they are and how many we have. How many trucks do we have in our fleet? You said we replace or tried to replace one every 2 years, but we have 2 that are kind of in need right now almost. So can you just explain that fleet?
Yeah, so there's six pickups. We're trying to keep them for 12 years and then recycle one out once every 2 years. I've got the 6 pickups and then the one F-550. So that's kind of the schedule we're trying to maintain. There was a period of time where someone bought two 2016s, so we're trying not, 2016s, 2014. So we're trying to make sure that everything's spaced evenly apart so that we don't have several things breaking down at once. We're maintaining the same philosophy throughout the fleet, so I'm going to try and not to get off topic. You've got 6 tandems, 6 graders, 3 tractors, a bulldozer. We're trying to purchase one thing every year so that we're on somewhat of a 20-year cycle with the heavy equipment.
That answer your question, Councillor Hickey? Okay. So I'm going to ask a question, and this is for clarity. If we went with a 5% tax levy increase and drew $670,889 out of our general surplus, we would balance. Is that correct, Ellen, or not?
Yes, a 5% increase and a transfer from the general surplus would balance.
CAO, please.
Plus all the other transfers that we transfer to the reserves.
Yeah, yeah.
Because we did a grand total of 1.4 million,
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
So I just want to be clear on that.
Yep. We did some other transfers as far as K2 and, tax funds and that sort of thing applied to different projects that they were applicable for. So I'm going to ask for a show of hands if we are in support, and we're going to divide this into two. We'll have a motion on the levy. However, a show of hands if we're in support of drawing 670,889,000 out of general surplus. Show of hands, please. And that is supported by council. The second, I would entertain a motion that we set our tax levy for 2026 at 5%. A motion. Councillor Miltenberg and Councillor Forrester. Further discussion? All in favor of that? Opposed? And that is carried. Is there anything further to discuss on this, Treasurer or CAO, please, or Clerk?
I was just going to say that staff will bring forward the final budget to a future meeting. Is that the end statement?
Yeah, so today actually formalizes the budget, but the official tax rate bylaw will come forward once we get those tax rate numbers from the county, and we probably already have them for the school board. We'll bring back an official tax rate bylaw, and Ellen will provide all the applicable different sheets that have changed through today's progress, and as well bring back the finalized budget when we adopt the tax rate bylaw to go ahead with it.
Okay, that's the process. Okay. Okay, I thank everyone for this and your thoughtful input on it. And I think we're at the stage of our confirmatory bylaw, Clerk, and so I'll ask for a mover and a seconder for our confirmatory bylaw, please. Councillor Miltenberg moves. Councillor Hickey seconds. The leave be given to introduce bylaw number 16-2026, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Township of Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh Special Council meeting held on March 13th, 2026, and then now be read severally, a first, second, and third time, and finally pass this 13th day of March, 2026. All in favor of the motion? And that is carried. And a motion to adjourn, please. Councillor Blake and Councillor Snowblin. Seconds that Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh Township Council does now adjourn to meet again on March 17th, which is Tuesday this coming week, 2026 at 9 a.m. or at the call of the mayor. All in favor of this motion? And that is carried. And again, thank you very much to everyone for your thoughtful input in this budget process. Thank you. Meeting is adjourned.